on GBH and NEPM.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has welcomed the tariff agreement struck this weekend between the United States and the European Union. As Esme Nicholson reports, the deal will impose a 15% import tariff on most EU goods, and it ends months of uncertainty.
Friedrich Merz says Germany has been able to preserve its core interests and avoid an unnecessary escalation in transatlantic trade relations. While the agreed tariff rate is half as much as the White House originally proposed, Germany's Federation of Industries calls it an inadequate compromise that will have immense negative effects on Germany's export-oriented industry. In addition to a 15% base rate on EU imports, Brussels has agreed to purchase $750 billion worth of energy products and invest a further $600 billion in the United States over the coming years. Economists warn that the asymmetrical deal will raise prices for consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. For NPR News, I'm Esme Nicholson in Berlin.
Back to school time is approaching, and the tariffs that go into effect this Friday may make it more expensive to equip students for the new year. Angela Hanks is chief of policy programs at the Century Foundation, a progressive think tank that conducts research and proposes policy changes. She says the tariffs may affect a range of items on the back-to-school list.
Backpacks or pencils or computers or food for school lunches. There are a number of expenses, and I think Americans are worried that all of those things will be made more expensive by tariffs this year.
She says many items are produced in China, subject to a 30% tariff. Two leading Israeli human rights organizations say they've examined Israel's war in Gaza from a health perspective, and they believe that Israel's actions constitute genocide under the 1948 Genocide Convention, a UN treaty. NPR's Emily Fang has more.
Israel's B'Tselem and the Israeli branch for the organization Physicians for Human Rights both say in separate reports that Israel's military's actions in Gaza have destroyed the enclave's healthcare system in a manner, quote, both calculated and systematic, and that Israel's military has conducted intentional attacks on medical personnel and facilities. Physicians for Human Rights argues the assault on Gaza's healthcare system is, quote, part of a deliberate policy targeting Palestinians as a group and therefore constitutes genocide under the 1948 Convention, which was largely conceived as a response to the Holocaust. David Mencer, a spokesperson for Israel's prime minister, told reporters the office, quote, strongly rejects the report's findings. Mencer said Israel's military targets, quote, terrorists and never civilians. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
Checking stocks, the Dow is down 32 points. The S&P is up 4. This is NPR News in Washington.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. As the court-appointed attorney's work stoppage continues, there are as many as 20 people facing charges in Brookline District Court and more than 100 across Norfolk County courts who are not currently represented by lawyers. The Globe reports that over 100 cases have already been dismissed in Boston Municipal Court because the defendants could not afford to hire lawyers and the government was unable to provide them with any. At issue is the $65 an hour rate that the bar advocates make, which is lower than what several surrounding states pay. They are seeking a raise to $100 per hour. And Tom Lehrer, song satirist, composer, math professor at MIT, Harvard, and other universities, has passed away. A longtime friend said Lehrer died Saturday at his home in Cambridge. He did not specify a cause of death. A Harvard prodigy, Lehrer earned a math degree from the university at age 18, turned his sharp mind to songs that often criticized old traditions, as well as politics and current events, once even describing the city of Boston's methods to reduce its pigeon population.
All the world seems in tune on a spring afternoon when we're poisoning pigeons in the park. Every Sunday you'll see my sweetheart and me as we poison the pigeons in the park.
He actually sang at a friend of mine's parents' wedding back in the day. Tom Lehrer was 97 years old. 83 degrees in Boston right now. We are looking for a high of 90. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege, but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
Beach and Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. You're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Congresswoman Catherine Clark, the number 2 Democrat in Congress. Good morning, Jim.
She's going to be there at 11 o'clock sharp, by the way. People should know. We're starting this week focusing on starvation in Gaza. Images across the media this weekend showing emaciated children, skin clinging to their bones. Absolutely horrific, as dozens have actually starved to death over the past few weeks due to a lack of food. The AP is reporting the story of one girl who weighed 6.6 pounds when born. She died at 5 months, weighing less than 4.4 pounds. Doctors confirmed her death was due to severe malnutrition. Yesterday, following pressure from traditional allies, Israeli forces started daily so-called humanitarian pauses in fighting in certain areas across Gaza, also allowing other nations to conduct airdrops of food yesterday and today. And meanwhile, the sadistic prime minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, still has the audacity to say, this is a quote, by the way, there is no starvation in Gaza. No starvation in Gaza. But even Trump acknowledged today, this is a day after he said that he was complaining that no one was thanking him for sending millions of dollars to this organization that is not one that you can rely upon. He is acknowledging there's starvation, says we're going to do something. We know it's all happening thanks to the scores of local journalists on the ground in the Strip, many of whom are facing malnutrition themselves. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. What is your reaction to all of this? What does it say about all of us? There's been so much inaction on our part in support of the Palestinians. Has the Trump administration's efforts to portray pro-Palestinian protests as pro-terrorist work? And we just want your general reaction to this, and if you're doing anything, and if you give a damn. 877-301-8970 is our number. I have to say, I never, ever turn off the news because of images. I had to do it Friday night.
Yeah.
The images of these little children, not one or two, but everywhere, are it's unconscionably horrible, and virtually not a peep. And yes, did you hear Trump yesterday? Literally complaining
let's play
that
the sound.
we have it? Okay,
let's play the sound. This is a clip from the president saying he was not thanked Gaza during his press conference with the European Union when he was over playing golf in Scotland.
Well, we gave $60 million 2 weeks ago, and nobody even acknowledged it for food. And it's terrible. You really at least want to have somebody say thank you. No other country gave anything.
Well, first of all, that's not true.
I about fell off the chair when I heard that.
Literally, he cannot speak a sentence without a lie. One, no other country gave anything. Totally untrue. Yeah. Two, we didn't give $60 million. We gave $30 million, according to Reuters. And let me read from the Reuters story. The $30 million we gave to the controversial Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And groups, lawmakers, and the UN have condemned the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation for bringing starving families to food distribution sites only for Israeli soldiers and U.S. mercenaries to shoot at them when they're trying to get food. So that's what the world should be thanking Donald Trump personally for. Today, because the Prime Minister of the UK, Starmer, broached the issue, he finally came on board and said, I don't even know what this means. We're going to create food centers, the U.S. is, in Gaza. I don't know what it means.
Well, I think he's just making something
like hold
up.
Your breath,
I think he's just making something up. A British physician who has been volunteering at these hospitals over in Gaza, called this man-made starvation being used as a weapon of war, which is basically what it is. As you mentioned before, Benjamin Netanyahu is denying that there's starvation going on. He said that Hamas is stealing the food. No one has proven that Hamas is stealing the food.
No, it's worse than that.
Generals.
his own general, his own military is saying there's no evidence that there is significant loss of food because of Hamas taking it.
And they had, before this, the UN was doing it, and they had hundreds of points across Gaza where people could get food. Now there's a handful of points. And as is this heart-rending quote that I heard this morning was the father was saying, we've decided we'll just stay here and starve to death rather than go walk miles to get food and probably be shot while we're trying to get the food. And then there'll be no one, if they're shot and not killed, then there will be no one to help them because the hospitals are out of painkillers and the hospitals are out of, anesthesia. They're out
of food. Doctors and nurses and
fainting.
Other healthcare professionals are fainting on the job. By the way, I'm just looking at the front page on the web of the New York Times, and the first three stories are all, thankfully, finally, about this. One mentioning that Trump is allegedly doing a turnaround. Let's see what he does. Listen to the next two headlines. Second and third headline in the paper. Revenge is not a policy. Israelis voice dissent against the war in Gaza, meaning that voice is rising. Another interesting one. In a first, leading Israeli rights groups accuse Israel of Gaza genocide. So maybe the internal pressure will convince Netanyahu that this murderous starvation campaign is not as in his interest. And I'm not even going to say the obvious today. What he has done, even for those who think that I don't virtually know anybody, but who believe his campaign against Hamas is a winning strategy. The level of anti-Semitism in the world that has been generated by the behavior of the Prime Minister of Israel is going to go on for interminable amounts of time.
I mean, there's a real irony here. The president going off and on this whole tangent about going after all these universities for their supposed anti-Semitism. And there was a lot of anti-Semitism. There's always been anti-Semitism, but it was really heightened after October 7th. No question about it. Jewish kids being afraid on campus, etc. But I mean, what is the result of what Netanyahu has done, and Trump could put a stop to? What is the result of that? So we're going to stop anti-Semitism on college campuses while it's going to rise all across the world because of what's happening in Gaza.
Can I say one more thing about Trump's comment, his offensive comment? Once again, everything is about him. People starving by the thousands, they didn't thank him. Somebody didn't thank him. There's a story one of our colleagues gave us, Nicole, from CNN. Listen to the headline. USAID, that's United States Agency for International Development, raised critical concerns, in quotes, over Gaza Aid Group, that group I mentioned, days before $30 million of U.S. money was given to the very same group. So he lies about the $60 million.
Well, he
lies that nobody else is giving money, and obviously didn't mention or care about the fact that USAID said it was not a reliable group to give money to anyway.
He's also saying, the Trump administration is also saying no one's died because of cutbacks in money to USAID. That's a lie.
Rubio's saying
That's a lie, too. And we could just have a text of someone who says, I supported the initial bombing. The starvation is clearly genocide. Also, Hamas could end this immediately by releasing the hostages. And you hear that a lot, that Hamas could end this. Well, obviously, Hamas doesn't care about the people in Gaza because they would have helped them before this. But what is it when a person says they could end this by releasing the hostages? So what does that mean? That we should just let everybody starve while we wait?
Keep killing and starving people out until Hamas decides
but
it's
Hamas
time.
is not going to do it,
I'm being
obviously.
facetious. Obviously, the food has got to be provided, medical equipment's got to be provided, and there's got to be a ceasefire. But the threshold issue is not, no one, I assume calling today is going to disagree with that. The issue is, what's wrong with us? Why is there not a colossal uproar about what we're seeing on the television screens and in the newspapers?
What part of it is, Marisa Osterk was arrested and held in detention by ICE because she had the nerve to write an op-ed that was saying we need to do something about the Palestinian crisis. She co-wrote it with other people. I mean, I mentioned this over and over again. This is part of this whole Project Esther thing, which is in Project 2025, that what I don't know if I can say the Trump administration, but certainly the people that wrote Project 2025, what they want to do is they want to basically make it a crime to be pro-Palestinian. I mean, that's what they want to do.
Not pro-Hamas. I know we always have to say that.
In this Project
Pro-Palestinian.
Esther suggests, and I'm reading from it, suggests public firings of pro-Palestinian professors on campuses and using anti-racketeering laws to break up pro-Palestinian or liberal leading groups as part of this Christian nationalism that, we're all going to take over the Holy Land and get all the Palestinians out of there.
Can I say one more thing here? I said last week, I think you were off Friday, but I think I said it early in the week, we were talking about the Medicaid cuts and the Republicans who voted for it, and how do they live with themselves? Is it not going to be the first paragraph in their obituaries? It should be the first paragraph in our obituaries. Average, normal people, if we don't speak up against what's happening in Gaza, particularly to these kids. This starvation thing is just unconscionable. Let's take some calls.
Just one last piece of this, and I'll shut up. CNN has been running these repeats of the Live Aid concert back when Bono and Dylan and all these superstars raise money for starvation around the world. And we had who's the head guy from the Dropkick Murphys?
Ken Casey was with us last week.
Who was talking about it's odd that other entertainment kind of people haven't gotten together to do something this time around. I mean, all those groups came together for Live Aid way back when. Where are those people now?
Well, we've been saying forever. And by the way, Dropkick Murphys dropped out of something last week because the organization made a contribution to Trump. Whether they agree with it or not, that is a bunch of people who actually act upon principle. Let's go to Jane in Concord. You're first on BPR. Welcome to the show, Jane. Hi.
Hi. As usual, I agree with you. You on almost everything you're saying. I have a few comments, and I'd like to ask you a question. So
Please.
I am someone, I've mentioned it before, who has Jewish relatives and non-Jewish relatives, as well as Jewish in-laws and non-Jewish in-laws. Being anti-Semitic about protesting a government, an extreme right-wing government of Netanyahu, just like it's not anti-Christian to protest a government in the U.S. or in France, or protest the Taliban. It's not anti-Muslim. So this whole thing about anti-Semitism in college campuses is just such a blown-up craziness when they're not worried about trans kids, gay kids. How about Muslim students? They're making up this big thing about anti-Semitism. And
that's key. They are making it up. I think that's clear.
Well, also, it's sort of like Trump complaining about anti-Semitism is like David Duke complaining about racism. I mean, the guy hangs out with neo-Nazis. So it's ridiculous. But go ahead. Keep going, Jane.
So, and a friend of mine who is born in the U.S. but married an Israeli woman is dual national. Mm-hmm. I was talking to him about it, and he said he thinks that the Israelis in general, or at least the right-wing ones, they don't consider the Palestinians really to be human. And I said, well, what about all the kids? How can the kids be guilty of the crimes of their parents? And he said, no, they don't care. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's his opinion, and he doesn't agree with it. But I guess my question is also, have you folks heard about protests and uproar in Israel? Because we really don't hear about that.
There have been some. There have been some.
We have some.
Jane, we talked about this last week, and from my reading, and there may be others who know more than I do, but there have been hundreds and hundreds of people that have been in Israel who are upset about this. But the media in Israel is not reporting on Gaza. You can go online and get more information.
Which I would assume almost everybody is.
Oh, everybody does, but there's a sense that there's a lot of people in Israel who are in denial that this is even happening. And
you should read
the problem.
But let me just add one more thing, Jane. You should read the story I referenced before at the lead of the time. Revenge is not a policy, in quotes. Israelis voice dissent against the war in Gaza. So read that. Thank you very much for your call. You know what Jane said about Netanyahu has done a brilliant job parallel to what Trump has done with immigrants about making them less than human. You make the Gazans less than human, and then people don't care about it, just like Trump has tried to say everybody that crosses the border illegally is a rapist or a murderer or is coming for you.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a very effective strategy.
The Palestinians have not lived well in Israel for quite a few decades at this juncture, I think it's fair to say.
We have on Thursday, we have James Jacoby, who did a terrific new Frontline piece that is airing this week about Iran and Israel, and it touches in part on the conditions that people in Gaza have been living under for years. People should check it out.
I'm getting all these texts about why doesn't Hamas step up to the plate? Yeah. That's kind of like asking why didn't the Nazis step up to the plate, or why doesn't the Taliban step up to the plate? Because they don't care. I mean, they're a terrorist group that is not going to come into the rescue. It's all blaming, saying, well, this is a Hamas fault.
Yeah, let's stop reading those.
But it's a ridiculous idea, as if they expect that that's never going to happen. They're never going to help these people. They obviously don't care.
Stuart in Williamsburg, welcome. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
What do you just want me to talk? Okay, I think I come.
Well, I think
Tell
that's
us what
the
you
idea.
think, Stuart.
Yeah.
Tell us what
Just
you think
talk.
about what's going on in Gaza.
I think, okay, first of all, I come from a special perspective because I was born a Jew, bar mitzvah, confirmed, wasn't very religious but cultural. But when I was a junior at Emory, the war broke out, and I signed up and ended up dropping out of college with their permission and went and worked on a kibbutz at Bet Kama in the Negev for 8 months. So I was a big, Israel supporter, like my average tribe. But in the 90s, I started watching, and I would see up on one guy laying on his back over something over there in Palestine. And then other things happened like that, and I tried to join a Jewish organization. The minute I talked about that, they walked out on me. And I've written a couple of presidents, and I feel that Israel says they're only going after Hamas, but I think they're targeting people beyond this, but mostly between 20 and 45, and saying, oh, that's a Hamas. Well, what do they expect? And I don't think the world, and especially here in America, I don't think we really understand the history. I think you have to go all the way back to 1920s, and after Herzl wrote about, Israel being a land and how the UN handled it and how Israel won that first war. Did that give them a right?
Stuart, can I interrupt you to say it's probably very helpful to understand the history of the region, but even if people choose to ignore the history of the region, all they have to do is look at the reality of what is happening today and see who needs help and that it's got to be immediate. And again, as I say, I hope we include history in our analysis, but even for those who don't, there's a demand for action. Stuart, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970 is the number. Where are we going next?
Let us go. Oh, we don't have a
Got to give us a little guidance in there, please, people.
Checked out.
Let's go to Catherine on the Cape. Hi.
Good morning, Tim and Marjorie. I'm glad you're raising this heartbreaking subject.
Thank you.
I'm calling to tell you and your listeners about an important program that will be on Wednesday night this week.
Yep.
It's called Gaza Genocide in the Global Medical Response. It's going to be presented at St. Cecilia's in Boston, the Parish Hall. And speaking will be one of the co-founders of Doctors Against Genocide, a neurologist from Children's Hospital, will be speaking on that topic. But also, they are involved in raising over $700,000 to fund the construction of a 140-bed field hospital with operating room. And this is to be on the grounds of the El Shafa Hospital, which is recently bombed, but it's the only hospital still standing at all. So anyways, there's also an opportunity to donate to the Doctors Against Genocide. Their website is doctorsagainstgenocide.com.
Okay, we got it.
Catherine, thank you. This is Wednesday night at St. Cecilia, so people should look up St. Cecilia's online. It's St. Cecilia's Boston.
Place?
John Unni, U-N-N-I, yeah, but they have a great website which we can give you all the information. Catherine, thank you very much for that.
877-3, well, the lines are all full. Where are we going next? Where are we going next?
We're waiting. Well, I can read some text.
Can we have tell us who you want us to talk to, please, as quickly as we can here?
This person is saying the Israeli government views all Palestinians as potential Hamas members. They are clearing Gaza. The West Bank is next.
Janet in Providence. How are you, Janet? Thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
Doctors Against Genocide.
You got to turn the radio down, please, Janet.
Doctors Against
Okay, Janet, we'll put you on hold. Let's pick somebody else, please, quickly, and let's talk to them. We'll get back to Janet in a minute. Everybody's got to turn their radio down, please. Matt in New Bedford. Hi, Matt.
Hey, you guys, can you hear me all right?
We can perfectly. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, sometimes I call in and I feel like I'm the youngest person that only knows how to open a PDF.
What's up, Matt?
So yeah, I got a lot on this. The Turkish people 110 years ago committed a horrible genocide against women and children. And the Turkish people were we don't let them forget about it. The Jewish population of the world is never going to recover from this. They are always going to wear a scarlet letter for the rest of their lives. And the children and the innocent people and the ghosts of Gaza are going to haunt them forever, because this is the most publicly broadcasted genocide our human beings have ever seen in their lives. And we can see it every day on our phones. You guys are talking about it on a Monday. Like, this is going to be haunted for them forever. The Jewish population now wears...
Matt, this is... You can't indict the entire Jewish population. I mean, that's like indicting every American for what Donald Trump is doing. A lot of Jewish groups are opposing this. Israelis...
Hold on, wait.
What?
Marjorie.
What?
Everyone wears a letter. Every single person, every demographic, everyone wears one.
Okay, well, if you include,
I agree.
If you include everybody else, that's fine.
Well, I think you should include all of us here.
But it's certainly not fair to just say
indict the Jewish population
because there are so many. And we've had people on our show who are Jewish. The woman from Hillel at Tufts University was very opposed to what was going on there, and she said that months ago. So anyway, coming up after this quick break, more of your calls and texts. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR on GBH and NEPM and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Mexico is celebrating the 700th anniversary of the founding of Tenochtitlan. That's the ancient Aztec capital that Mexico City was built on. There have been many festivities over the past 2 weeks, and they'll culminate in a massive theatrical performance featuring thousands of dancers and actors. Our reporter takes you there next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And M&M Skylights, installing and servicing the full range of commercial and residential V-Lock skylight products. More information about their installation process and consultations can be scheduled at mmskylights.com. And the Boston Speakers Series, continuing its season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, Outliers author Malcolm Gladwell, and geopolitical economist Pippa Malmgren. bostonspeakers.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow, 11 o'clock. We're joined in person by the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Catherine Clark, Congresswoman Clark. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about this starvation crisis in Gaza, particularly about kids, and whether or not these images will change anything and will make us, as a people here in the United States, more vocal, asking our government and Israel's government to stop this, feed these people, and stop this war.
You know, a lot of people are asking where the other Arab nations, and it's important to point out that some of the Arab nations were involved in this airdrop over the weekend, the Jordan and the United Arab Emirates. But the problem is with the airdrops, apparently they're not very effective. Lots of people don't get food. The UN was running the best ones before, and Israel stopped doing that, and they had, as we know, these sites that were set up. where all these people were getting killed as they came for food. And the Israelis kept saying that they were firing warning shots. Well, usually I think of warning shots go up in the air. So I'm not clear, Jim, on how when you're firing warning shots up in the air, they wind up killing people on the ground and wounding people on the ground. That seems a little hard to believe. But anyway, they say what they need is not just these airdrops. They need sites, not just a handful of sites, but they need hundreds of sites like they had before. And I mean, it's clear that a lot of other countries, including the Arab countries, haven't gotten food in there because Netanyahu's government won't let them. I mean, that's where the buck stops.
Here's an anonymous texter listening on NEPM in Connecticut. I just discovered, you guys, all this horror will sadly continue until we have regular working people with empathy, basic human compassion, a lack of greed in every office of government. Sort of a variation of what Scotty from Newton says about the USA is also culpable here, too. And by the way, it's not just Donald Trump.
Yeah,
as we discussed
Biden.
with Omer Bertov the other day from Brown, the genocide scholar, Biden was supplying weapons like crazy too. So the United States does not have clean hands here. They sure as hell, we sure as hell do not. James in a car. Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Hi.
Listen, I've been watching the footage of the starving children. It breaks my.
We lost you.
We lost him.
I think Alex hung up there. He's back.
No, I didn't hang up.
James, sorry. Hi, James. Go ahead.
I think it. Listen, this stuff horrifies me. You know, I have 4 kids of my own. I taught kindergarten for decades. And to see children in that shape it's brought me to tears. But then I think of the fact that, like 6 weeks ago, 500 tons, or I think it was actually 5,000 tons of what are called super nutritious biscuits that were already paid for, rotted in warehouses and on docks because Elon Musk had done away with USAID and nobody in the government had the thought to actually do something to get that stuff sent.
Yeah, that's true. It was rotting.
It makes me so angry.
Yeah. That's true.
James, thanks.
And I'm not clear about why they couldn't find a way to get there, but they did let the food
Because
rot.
there's no will, obviously. There's no will. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump today, if you just tuned in, yesterday, his message was, I'm not being thanked for all the great things I'm doing for the people in Gaza. Today, he is acknowledging that the United States has to do something real.
I'm a 99% Ashkenazi Jew, and I am shocked and ashamed that the Israeli people dehumanize Palestinians, considering that tactic was one employed by the Nazis.
Well, that's also a generalization. It's not the whole Israeli people.
No, it's not. It's the Israeli government. We should always make that distinction. But obviously, that's what Americans did with African Americans. With 3/5 of a man. We all remember that.
You know, and when I just went out of my way, as you did a minute ago, say it's not all Israelis, and you said the thing about not all Americans. Well, the American people they elected Donald Trump, and Netanyahu is the prime minister of Israel. They didn't just take over the office with a military coup. So as that old line goes, it's not who we are, but it is who we are, apparently.
Well, it's who half of us are.
Well, it's who enough of us are to have elected Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Janet in Providence, hi.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of drops. Okay.
Hi.
Tactic was
I donate. Okay.
Oh, you got to turn off the radio, Janet.
Go ahead.
What?
You have to turn off the radio.
Go ahead.
I did.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Thank you.
That's okay.
I donate to an organization in Providence called Adicia, which produces PlumpyNet, which is the life-saving food that can bring a child back from starvation, even an infant. And on June the 30th, I got this email from her, from the woman who started it, Naveen Salim, that said the state now... today was the last day of USAID. Tomorrow, our work falls under the purview of the State Department. Since then, she has had nobody answer the phone. They have had nobody who can coordinate the passage of the food to the children anywhere in the world. It rotted. It had to be thrown out. And this is purely the incompetence of the Trump organization. All of the organizations responsible for the byways in which something to help people is sent to someplace else have been gutted by Doge. and the organizations themselves have been discontinued by Trump. There physically is no way to get the things to any child who is starving, and it is being disposed of.
Well, Janet, as it was said before, the UN agencies, which we have disavowed, were doing a pretty decent job, but because Trump has this anti-UN thing, as does Netanyahu, we decided they were not the appropriate vehicles. So instead, we gave $30 million recently to an organization that USAID itself said it had critical concerns about. Janet, thanks for the call. I mean, the bottom line is we could do the right thing. We could force Israel to do the right thing. We don't because we choose not to as a country, and the leader of this country chooses not to until he's in a box, like he is this morning in Scotland.
We have an agenda to wipe out Palestine. Yeah. Isn't that what our agenda is?
You mean the United States?
Yes, and isn't the idea of Netanyahu to make it uninhabitable so the Palestinians have to go someplace else to live? Isn't that what this is all about? I think that's what this is all about, isn't it?
Well, let's say, again, Trump said this morning he's going to create food centers all over Gaza. Let's find out by the end of the show what that means. We'll share that with you and find out if he follows through, if he doesn't get a thank you in advance.
Okay, we are moving on. We're going to be talking up next to retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. We'll talk to her about the Department of Justice is now poised to unjustly ignore court orders, and she'll talk about the Jeffrey Epstein case as well, and what's going on at her old alma mater, Barnard, that's part of Columbia University. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM.
I'm Jared Bowen. Today on The Culture Show, in Apollo 13, Tom Hanks never made it to the moon. The closest he's been, the immersive exhibition he co-created. Now the multimedia lunar experience has landed in Boston. From outer space, we go underground with an archaeological dig that literally and figuratively excavates what childhood was like 300 years ago. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And The Art Drive, a juried open studio tour this Friday through Sunday. You can visit artists in their studios along the seacoast of Dartmouth and Westport. Learn more at the-art-drive.com. And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, helping families overcome the college planning stress. Committed to providing trusted guidance with calculators, step-by-step videos, and more. Details at mefa.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. Streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow. Number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives will join us in person at the library at 11 o'clock sharp. That's Congresswoman Catherine Clark. For the latest iteration of On the Docket, we're joined now via Zoom, probably from her she shed in the wilds of New Hampshire. Judge Gertner is a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Hello, Judge. How are you?
Good. Everything's good.
Yeah.
Everything's good. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. Everything's good.
Did you read the story about how this dentists are finding all these people grinding their teeth to shreds because they're so stressed out? I mean, it's like...
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I don't know if I'll have any teeth by the end of this.
I'm near a lake, as Jim knows, and when I get stressed, I just jump in the lake.
That's where that expression comes from, go jump in a lake. I believe that's the genesis of that.
Okay, well, let's start with the really depressing news coming out of the Department of Justice. We now have 2 whistleblowers who talked about Emile Beauvais, who's in line to become what's the title, U.S. federal judge?
Federal judge.
I thought an appellate court judge.
Yeah,
right.
Federal appellate court judge, and maybe the Supreme Court, I mean, who knows, thinks that it's okay. He's told lawyers in the Department of Justice, according to at least 2 whistleblowers so far, that they can ignore court orders. I believe the word one of the whistleblowers used that in the meeting, he said they could F court orders and just go ahead with their work. So this is pretty scary stuff that the Department of Justice lawyers would be either ignoring orders or losing their jobs, like some of them already have.
First, let me put this in context for a moment. So we've had divisive fights about judges and ideological differences, right? I mean, when Trump 1, he basically used the Federalist Society as the route for judges to get on the district court, the courts of appeals, and the Supreme Court. There was a pushback if you disagreed with that ideology. But one of the things that seems clear about even that group of judges is that even if their judicial philosophy was different, they would follow the law. We all had a situation in which the law says X, you believe that that's wrong, but you nevertheless enforce the law. What is unique about Bove is he's saying, not I have ideological differences with the courts, I will not enforce the law. That is very, very different. And in some sense, by the way, he's taking his cue, or I don't know, maybe he was the one who initiated this, from stuff that Pam Bondi has said, stuff that Pete Hegseth has said, which is, we don't give a damn about the district courts. We don't give a damn about the Court of Appeals. The only court that we will obey is the Supreme Court. And then this is my editorial suggestion, and I'm not even sure that they will obey the Supreme Court. So to some degree, what he is saying is making explicit what is already clear from numbers in the Department of Justice. By the way, in that regard, there's an interesting thing that came out this morning. Trump has sued, I believe he sued the Supreme Court for the purpose of getting access to information from the Judicial Conference. The Judicial Conference is the entity that runs the courts, and they wanted they filed a Freedom of Information Act suit against the Supreme Court to get information about deliberations of the Judicial Conference. What's significant about this story is that the Supreme Court is represented by a private lawyer. The Supreme Court is usually represented by the Department of Justice, and now they have chosen to go to a private lawyer rather than going to the Department of Justice, which speaks volumes to how much they think that the Department of Justice is candidly rogue, period, full stop.
Who'd they hire?
I've forgotten the name of the lawyers. The lawyer, I just got it moments ago.
That's
is
incredible.
A firm lawyer. But the significance of the story is that it wasn't the Department of Justice.
By the way, we should update. Email Bove, this guy we're talking about, who is obviously was Trump's lawyer before, and then he was approved unanimously by the Republican side of the Judiciary Committee. Not one Republican voted against his candidacy. What was your
let's not leave him yet.
Before we do, what was your confirmation vote when you were the Senate voted on you?
I don't remember, but it wasn't close.
I know that. Yeah,
I was voted out of committee, and I don't remember it being close, but those were the Senator Kennedy days.
Yeah.
Senator Kennedy, put someone up for a judgeship, you were going to get the judgeship.
Mm-hmm. I'm concerned, Judge Gertner, because when I see a picture of Emile Bove next to Roy Cohn, I'm not sure which one is which.
No, they do. There really is a similarity there.
Is this practically a reincarnation we have here?
Yeah. No, I think, but you have to. I mean, to the people who are listening to this program, they have to understand that this is very different than saying I don't agree with the originalist method of this judge, or I don't agree with the way this judge interprets the Voting Rights Act. What is significant is that the judges who have voted against Trump in emergency orders have been Trump appointed, Federalist Society, as well as Obama, Biden, and Clinton appointed. So it supports the notion that wherever you started, whatever your judicial philosophy is, when the Trump administration is behaving totally illegally, they will be able to say so. I'm not so confident of Emile Bove because it's not an issue of judicial philosophy with him. It's an issue of being a lackey of the president.
Turn a federal judge, former federal judge Nancy Gertner. Can we spend a minute on good news, which we almost never do with you? There have been 3 decisions now, one here, maybe more than one here, one in an appellate court in suggesting that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship, despite what Donald Trump says. And I think we all remember that the Supreme Court sent this thing down, and I assume this and a class action was certified. I assume this is obviously going to make its way back to the Supreme Court of the United States. Are they going to attempt to avoid the question again, or is this going to land squarely on their desks and have to rule on the merits about what the 14th Amendment so clearly says?
Well, listen, with this Supreme Court, there's always a possibility that they can come up with a technical reason to duck. Mm-hmm. So they could say, these cases are getting up to the Supreme Court mostly in two ways. One is that the judge is certifying a nationwide class. He's saying that everyone in the United States who was not born in the United States, but nevertheless their children were born in the United States, everyone who fit within the bar on birthright citizenship is a member of this class. They are, the way the law describes it, as you remember, Jim, is that they are similarly situated with respect to the government's order. The government has ordered X. Everyone affected by X is in this class. In addition, it makes a difference to have a national standard. A national standard is critical in this case because you can't move from, Massachusetts to New Hampshire and have different rules apply as to who's a citizen and who's not. So the Supreme Court could say that, hey, we don't think this is appropriate for a class action, and that default to the notion that the only remedy that makes sense is a remedy that applies to these particular individuals. They could do that. It would be absurd. And there are now two judges who found a nationwide class. In addition, the states have come forward and say, we have an interest in a nationwide standard as well. And I believe in the case in New Hampshire, it was 22 states that sued on the birthright citizenship issue. In other words, a state has a broader interest than just an individual would have in enforcing laws within its boundaries. So they could say that that class and those states are not entitled to sue on behalf of the whole country. They could say that. It would be outrageous. It would be outrageous. But they could come up with a procedural dodge, frankly, in the same way that the injunction, the case against the nationwide injunction, was a procedural dodge. It would be more difficult in these cases because the judges who have ruled have said, I know what the Supreme Court said. It doesn't fit within those rules.
We're talking to former federal judge Nancy Gertner. Do you have observations on what's going on between the number two guy, former lawyer also for Donald Trump, Todd Blanche, number two guy at the Justice Department, his meetings in Florida with Ghislaine Maxwell, who I think everybody listening knows was sentenced to 20 years for her participation in this pedophile empire of Jeffrey Epstein. What's your reflection been on what's gone on down there?
I don't think that I think this was a symbolic gesture to Trump's base to say, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. And the reason why it's symbolic and not real is that the last thing, Blanche, as the former counsel to Trump, arguably has a duty of loyalty to his former client. And so he could never ask the question, tell me the truth, Ghislaine, did Trump know of the activities with women, with younger women? Was Trump there? Did he know? How obvious? This is a question he doesn't want to ask. Arguably, he actually shouldn't ask because of his loyalty to Trump. And he surely doesn't want the answer. So I think this is a formality. In addition, there are also he's political appointees never do these kinds of interviews. In addition, he doesn't know the file. They just fired the person who knows the file. And the reason why that's significant is if you
Comey's daughter you're talking about,
Maureen
correct?
Comey.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
I mean,
the prosecutor.
He prosecuted Epstein, so that if Ghislaine Maxwell says X and she knows X to be untrue, she can pursue this. Blanche doesn't have any of that information. So I think this is an empty, symbolic gesture for the purpose of, placating the base. For Trump to pardon her would be unbelievable. I mean, this is a man who was concerned about, quote, rapists coming from Mexico into the United States. This would be the rapist in chief who he'd be pardoning.
Yeah, I mean, almost as outrageous as pardoning all the January 6 people who attacked police officers, right?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, almost. Right. Judge Gertner, I have to say, I am in complete disagreement with you about the Blanche thing. My assumption is he absolutely asked that question, and Ghislaine Maxwell and her lawyer are smart enough to know the answer to every question about Trump is, well, I saw him socially. He had nothing to do with the misdeeds, because obviously, if she implicates him in any way, and if she fails to not implicate, well, I know that's a double negative, you know what I mean? The likelihood of ever getting a pardon is nil. She's got to clear Trump of everything. And isn't that the unspoken, obvious purpose of the meeting, don't you think?
I think that's right. I mean, if he were to ask that question, he would have to ask it. It would have to be clear that the answer is, of course not. Because he couldn't ask it, and she couldn't get pardoned without it, of course not. But it would be extraordinary if he pardoned her. Commuting her sentence, to reduce her sentence to a degree, he arguably could do that. But pardoning her for, one estimate is 100 young women who were victimized.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
One estimate is 1,000 young women, by the way, even larger number.
Judge Gertner, I don't know if this matters at all, but there's been a clip that's been all over the place the last few days of Jeffrey Epstein in a deposition for his earlier, when he was first shipped off for a few months, very light sentence for his sexual assaults on these women, young girls, I should say, under 18. But the questioner asked him if Mr. Trump was ever present with him with a girl that was under 18. And Epstein took the 5th, and I think he took the 14th and the 17th. I think he took about 17 different amendments.
Making up amendments.
Yeah. But I thought that was really damning for Trump, because the obvious answer would be no if Trump was never there. Why not just say no? So I thought that did not, I don't know if it matters because it was a deposition and it was a while ago, but I don't know. Is that something?
I think there's a continuum here for a moment, right? Was Trump in the room? Did he himself abuse women?
Right.
That's one end. The other is, he was a pal of Epstein. How much did he know of Epstein's activities? And that category may not yield criminal liability to him, but certainly suggests sort of moral culpability. In other words, and that was the significance of the Wall Street Journal letter, the birthday letter. That's the significance of the invitation to his wedding when Trump married. I think it's
Marla. Was it Marla?
Yeah.
I think it was Marla, number 2.
And he came to that. At least the Wall Street Journal's rendition of these various letters in the birthday book suggests there are some people who said happy birthday, and then some people who said, boy, we have wonderful secrets. And the latter were people who sort of were implying that there was much more involved here. So again, it's a moral issue. Whether he himself indulged in these, in these criminal activities is one thing. Whether he was present is another thing. But whether he knew of or suspected is another question entirely.
Well, he's widely quoted, Trump is, as saying that he and Jeffrey Epstein both love beautiful women, and then Trump went on to say that Epstein likes them rather young, or I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that seemed to differentiate Trump's taste in women to Epstein's taste in girls, but, it's not in the court of law.
And what was the significance of the reference in the Trump letter in the birthday book to secrets?
Exactly.
What's that about? So, again, will he be prosecuted for this? Of course not, for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is that Blanche would be making this decision, or Bondi would be making this decision. But what does it suggest about what he knew and when he knew it? and what his moral culpability is.
You know, are you one of those Barnard graduates who's offended when you're asked about Columbia because theoretically the twain doesn't meet except in terms of classes?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So as you know, I get obsessed on things and stuck. And one of my latest, this Columbia deal, I saw Claire Shipley on CNN the other morning saying it was not capitulation, and my head almost popped off. And then I read this story over the weekend in, I think it was the Washington Post. Columbia agreed to a monitor stoking fears about independence. If it wasn't clear, Judge Gertner, her undergraduate was at Barnard, which has a connection. Much of the oversight will relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Goes on and on. Essentially, what Columbia has agreed to is a federal monitor who is going to oversee their compliance with this deal they just cut with the Trump administration. It is so horrifying to me. I almost can't see straight. What's your reaction to this?
I think it's horrifying. I mean, if you understand that all the deals with the law firms, the proposed deal with Harvard, I mean, people are capitulating based in exchange for very vague issues. It's not like you're saying, I will do X on this date and you can monitor this. Essentially, these deals are so diffuse in terms of what they're agreeing to. The other thing is diversity, equity, and inclusion has been so broadly defined by Trump that it seems to me it could sweep, it shouldn't, but it could sweep within it the obligation not to discriminate against Black students, the obligation not to sexually harass women or discriminate against women. I mean, it has enabled the Trump administration to do things that are so much more than affirmative action. Arguably, the only issue was affirmative action, which is putting your thumb on the scale in the selection of individuals. Beyond that, broad recruitment of minorities, broad recruitment of women, making sure that they, that the pool is as wide as can possibly be, is DEI, but not illegal. And they don't have a right to make it illegal.
And by the way, when people are listening to Judge Gertner and say that's a stretch, well, if Donald Trump decides it's not a stretch, all he does is he says exactly what Judge Gertner fears. And when the university says, well, that's not what we agreed to, he reneges on the agreement to go ahead and give him the $400 million of research grants.
Have they got it back yet? They had to pay a $200 million fine, so maybe they're out $600 million by now.
That's what we saw with the law firms.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the goal line kept on changing.
Yeah.
Which is what happens when you put yourself under the thumb of an authoritarian. Then the only rule is what he wants.
Exactly.
I'm appalled by this. I mean, I think, there are two levels of questions. One is whether Columbia should have done this. And then there's the broader question about whether all of the players in civil society, universities, law firms, NGOs need to stand up to Trump.
Make sure you include media organizations in that too.
Media.
Nancy Gertner.
Although I watched South Park last night.
Oh my God.
I could barely contain myself.
It was
great. If people haven't, you have to. Nancy Gertner, it's great to see you.
Thank you, Judge Gertner.
Thanks so much.
We've been speaking with retired federal judge Nancy Gertner, a senior lecturer at Harvard Law School and a BPR contributor. Thank you very much. We say goodbye to you listening on NEPM. Thanks so much for tuning in. You can tune into the fabulous 413 at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Our show continues here in Boston after the noon news. We talk to the head of Boston University's journalism department, Brian McGrory. Lacey Pease, Michael Curry.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Morningside Music Bridge, returning to Boston. The summer program shines a spotlight on young classical musicians from around the world, with concerts now through August 1st at New England Conservatory. mmb.international. In New York City, a group of fearless residents, activists, and nonprofit attorneys fight corrupt landlords and developers for the basic human right to a home. Don't miss Slumlord Millionaire tonight at 10 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of BPO. We'll start the noon hour with former Globe editor, now head of BU journalism, Brian McGrory, with more news of Steward Health CEO Ralph De La Torre. A bankruptcy case alleges he and other executives defrauded the company of over $200 million, leading to the hospital chain's collapse. We'll get Brian's take on that, why De La Torre has not been criminally prosecuted here, and his take on the latest on the race to be Boston's next mayor.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's our own Carmen Sandiego travel writer Christopher Muther on how a drop in international tourists, namely proud Canadians boycotting Trump's policies, is hurting the U.S. economy. And we'll get his no-holds-barred review on live music at Logan Airport. That plus our Two More Things segment, that's next, BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump says Russia no longer has until early September to commit to a ceasefire with Ukraine and avoid crippling sanctions. He's now giving President Vladimir Putin less than 2 weeks. Trump announced the new timeline to reporters today from his golf resort in Scotland, where he's been mixing presidential business with rounds of golf as supporters and protesters appeared near the Turnberry grounds. It's where he shook hands with EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen over the weekend to seal a trade deal. NPR's Marie Aspen has more on that.
President Trump says the United States has agreed to impose new taxes of 15% on imports from the European Union. Details remain sparse, but investors are relieved that these tariffs aren't as high as the 30% Trump had previously threatened. Now Wall Street is watching for other trade deals ahead of the president's Friday deadline to reach such agreements with dozens of countries. There's plenty going on at home this week as Amazon, Apple, and more than 150 big companies report quarterly earnings. The Federal Reserve also meets and is widely expected to hold interest rates steady despite Trump's ongoing pressure to lower them. Maria Aspen, NPR News, New York.
Israel's paused its attacks on Gaza to allow aid to get in. But despite widespread reporting, including NPR's, the government is still denying people across the Palestinian enclave are starving. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Hamas is spinning lies. But in Scotland today, President Trump said the images of starving children on TV look real to him. Aid groups and news organizations have independently confirmed video of women, men, and children queuing with empty pots or bowls at food distribution sites, risking a repeat of Israeli military gunfire, fights among themselves for the limited food, and possible death. The Wall Street Journal reports Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is preparing to fire members of a panel responsible for guidelines on primary care. NPR's Ping Wong says medical groups are expressing concern.
The members of the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force have backgrounds in medicine, research, and public health. Its 16 members make recommendations for primary care doctors on how to screen, advise, and treat their patients. Dr. Bobby Mukamala, president of the American Medical Association, says if they get dismissed, it's likely to affect the quality of the guidance.
That's just fundamentally not how we should treat the science of screening people for things like cancer, for things like diabetes, for things like cardiology issues.
Earlier this month, the AMA, along with more than 100 health organizations, signed a letter to members of Congress urging them to protect the integrity of this group. Ping Huang, NPR News.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 28 points at last check at 44,933. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A group of Republican lawmakers on Beacon Hill are pushing for expanded criminal background checks for people working for licensed daycare and early education providers. According to the Eagle Tribune, the Healy administration isn't doing enough to screen foreign workers, and this new legislation, filed by Senate Minority Leader Bruce Tarr and 4 other GOP lawmakers, would require the State Department of Early Education and Care to expand background checks checks for job applicants who have lived outside the United States in the previous 5 years. Legislation also asks that the state gather, to the maximum feasible extent, criminal record information that applicants might have from other countries. Yesterday was day 3 of the hospitality workers' strike at Fenway Park. Local workers with Unite Here Local 26 continue to call for better wages and protections against automation from food services company Aramark. Lauren Casello has worked at the ballpark for 22 seasons. She says there could be a long road ahead.
I know that a similar thing happened in Philly, and it took a few months for them after their strike at their ballpark for them to come to an agreement. So that could potentially be our situation as well. It might not wrap up as soon as we want it to, so it might take a little bit longer.
The strike ended last night at 11 o'clock, though the union has left the door open to striking again if an agreement is not reached. Red Sox on a quick 3-game road trip. They're playing the Twins in Minnesota tonight. We're back to hazy, hot and Henry days today. 85 in Boston right now, looking for a high of 90. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Democratic Whip, Massachusetts Congressman Catherine Clark. She's a big, big deal, Jim, on the Democrats. No tickets or RSVPs needed. And we're also going to be, who's going to be there tomorrow? Somebody else is going to be there too. Oh, Lee Pelton from the Boston Foundation is going to be with us. Hello again, Jim.
It's also free air conditioning. I don't know
free
if
air conditioning, that's right.
Actually matters. Joined now by Brian McGrory. He's the former editor of The Globe. He now runs the journalism department at Boston University. Hey, Brian.
Hello there, Jim. Hello there, Marjorie. How are you guys?
Hey, Brian. Thank you very much for joining us. Every time I see Steward Healthcare, I think of your great stories about the airplane and the yachts and how that really got everybody going on Steward Health. But now Ralph De La Torre is being sued by Steward Healthcare, alleging that he and other executives made off with $262 million. And we keep asking, is he ever going to be arrested?
I mean, this is the question of the hour, right? And I haven't seen a good answer to this yet. We know that the federal government had launched an investigation into him. There was prosecutors in Washington working with prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston, looking into his dealings with Steward Healthcare and what he did and what he took out and what was illegal. I always thought that he would face real scrutiny on tax issues, among other things.
Yeah.
Don't they always get you on tax
That's
issues?
That's
right. But, time has gone on. These columns in the Globe reporting were over a year ago. We all know that these federal investigations take time, but this has been a lot of time. And you have to start to wonder, has there been a crack in the process somewhere? And has De La Torre gotten to the right person at the right time with the right influence? I don't know.
Well, except there are a couple things. One, the only entity that's actually criminally charged anybody, De La Torre and whoever the number 2 guy is, who used to live or does live in Brookline, I can't think of his name, is the island. Is it an island? Is Malta an island?
I don't know,
Whatever
Jim.
it is, the Commonwealth of Malta, whatever it is. The thing I don't get is I understand maybe if the federal government is deciding that they don't want to go after him because a tax evader doesn't want to prosecute a tax evader. We've asked Andrea Campbell a number of times about whether or not she's looking into this, and she says yes. She says, I can't disclose anything, but I am. My initial position was you can make a connection between the deaths that were reported in the Globe and his taking of money, which is a tougher case. When I read these stories about the bankruptcy proceeding in which they're going after him, as Marjorie said a minute ago, Brian, it seems to me it is so clear that he stole money from this company that I don't get it at all.
First of all, Jim, a couple of things on that front. One, if we have any more geography questions, like is Malta, can we get them all out right now so we can
I'm looking it up, so keep talking. I'll tell you in a minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem that way, right? I mean, he literally was pulling this money out of the company. I mean, he personally profited, according to the latest court filing. The suit against him was at $81+ million. He didn't share that document with other higher ups in the company. He went and used that money to buy the super yacht that we all know about now, and a ranch in Texas. So yes, it would seem like prosecutors could make pursue a fairly strong case about that, but it's why I don't know what's going on there. You would think that a year would be enough time to investigate this.
By the way, a small dollar compared to the big dollar, $2.5 million to his kid's school, too. I mean,
a donation, yeah.
A donation to his kid's school. Malta is a country. Actually, my apologies.
Well, it is a country, but Jim, you can be both an island and a country.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you for telling us that.
So, Brian McGrory,
I'll keep researching. I'll get back to you in a second. Go ahead.
You were the longtime guy who ran the Globe. Still write
It's
a
an
column.
island country in southern
Thank you,
Europe.
Jim.
Thank you
Beautiful
very much.
picture.
You're right.
I think we
Very
should
good.
all visit it.
Okay, good.
You ran the Globe for a long time. A Globe reporter and a Globe photographer were attacked down the south end by Mass Cast. That's where there's a lot of open drug dealing. Barry Chin, longtime photographer, was apparently attacked by a drug user swinging a cat's paw weapon, which is a metal rod with nails sticking out of it. And this has prompted the editor of the Globe to talk about taking some action. So what do you think?
Well, I think it's really scary for journalists when they go out to obviously dangerous places like this to do their job well. And this kind of threat can emerge at any given moment. I think, too often we have a false sense of security when we go out on stories. And Marjorie, I'm sure you felt this too. You've been all over the city. You believe that because you work for the Globe or the Herald or whoever else, that nobody's going to lay a finger on you, that you're part of the news media, that it's going to be fine. But that's not really the way it is. And this is probably, it's definitely among the most egregious cases of a real threat to journalists that I've seen. Barry Chin is a world-class photographer. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
Nikki Griswold is a very, very good young reporter. And, if you read the accounts by your Dan Kennedy that they were surrounded by, alleged drug dealers on bicycles and whatnot, and somebody is swinging this instrument, and, evidently there was a neighbor that came in and put somebody down who looked like they were about to do something like reach for a weapon.
Yes.
It's really scary. Nancy Barnes, the editor of the Globe, seems like she's doing all the right things here. She's offering security to people who go to these dangerous places. I might do more than offer. I might require them to.
Really?
What?
You would require that a reporter has security when they go on certain.
Listen,
you cut me off, Jim.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I might require them to go out in at least groups of 3 or 4.
Oh, okay.
When they go to places like this, I don't think it. When you're going to Mass and Cass and you're facing the kind of threat that they faced here, I don't see a whole lot wrong, Jim, in taking plainclothes security person with you. What would your beef be with?
I mean, doesn't it create? Why are you making a face?
I just recall one time.
Marjorie's making a face.
I was a reporter a long time ago, and I remember one time going to a place that was a little tough, and the photographer stopped and said, "Hold on," went to the trunk of his car and got out his gun and put it in the side of his. Put it inside his jacket when he went. But I mean, I think what?
Where does that end, though? I mean, if it turns, if everybody,
he wasn't supposed to do that.
No, I'm not talking about getting the gun. I'm talking about the security thing. Getting back to what Brian says, where your editor again, or Nancy Barnes is now editor. Where do you not send security if there is a concern? And I guess my concern is, doesn't that sort of put an obstacle between you, the reporter, and to that which and those who you're covering, or no?
Well, Jim, I wouldn't ask the question, where does it end? I would just ask the question, what is involved when you send reporters over to a place like Mass and Cass, or photographers or anybody else? And look, there are obviously people in a troubled state over there. They're not of clear mind. Many of them are very, very desperate. And I think that this isn't a hypothetical situation over there. People can pose danger over there. And if you're a journalist going out there and you're surrounded by, people who are carrying weapons or have motive to make sure that you don't publish your photographs, I'm not worried about the hypothetical question of where that ends or whether that's interfering with getting the best possible interview. I'm just worried about making sure those reporters can get in and out and photographers can get in and out safely. So I think that Nancy is offering the exact right thing here. In terms of your question, where does it end? I hope it ends there. I don't think that reporters should, there aren't a lot of situations in which reporters and photographers should be should have their relationship with potential sources of information impeded by a security person. But it seems right now, in this moment, fairly necessary over there.
But
what is your beef with that, Jim?
But a shout out to reporters in general. If you're a crime reporter, I think you're in danger a lot. You're in danger knocking on somebody's door, who's behind the door. You're in danger to going to certain parts of even protests. I mean, I don't mean to say reporters are all a bunch of tough people, but I think you got to be pretty gutsy to be a reporter covering crime because you're going into dangerous places a lot.
Oh, my God. Marjorie, absolutely. I mean, you're going to crime scenes. You're going to crime scenes and often arriving not long after police are arriving. It's still chaotic out there. You're seeing people in their most desperate point in many of their lives. And you don't know what's going to happen in these cases, which is why, and Jim, I'm not encouraging security in every one of these cases, but it's now obvious that it's needed at Mass and Cass.
Yeah, I hear you, but I think Marjorie framed my question and answer to your question, or my response, better than I could, which is there are a lot of dangerous situations. Do you sort of preemptively decide to send a security person when that knock on that potentially dangerous door is about to happen, or what do you do?
I don't know the answer to that yet. I'm still stunned that you said Marjorie framed something better than you did.
I didn't mean it.
The answer. I don't know the answer.
I never heard it before either, Brian. I'll remember it.
Edit that tape. Now, Brian, I have a question.
And look, let me go backward. The Globe has some history here. I mean, we once had a guy in California write us or make threatening phone calls for days and days and days, weeks at a time, that he was going to come to the Globe newsroom and shoot us up within the last 5 years or so. And the feds investigated it. They offered us protection. The local police offered us protection in the newsroom. We were really, really appreciative. And they ultimately captured a guy with a stash of weapons in California.
Wow.
And convicted him in federal court.
Well, yeah, but that's, I'll do this as respectfully as I can. That's a ridiculous example because obviously if you have an actual threat, you should obviously have some level.
Jim, I know you're talking from the safety of your studio and every once in a while you venture out and go to
No, actually I don't venture out.
You stop at Cane's Chicken and then you go to the library.
Okay.
And that to you is a dangerous situation. It is a lot different when you're a real live professional
We
reporter.
probably don't want to go into this story, but we did have an incident where you were threatened, and I think the head of the FBI was called.
No, the cops in Boston and Cambridge did their job, but that was the guy threatened to kill me.
I know,
mean, obviously.
he did, but I mean, we practically had the 87th Airborne, or was it the
Probably had
89th
nothing to
Airborne?
do with professional reasons either.
Okay, so Mr. Smart Aleck there, what's the official language of Malta?
Maltese.
What does that mean? The official language?
Actually, you get it right. There's a joint official language. It's not official. They speak. Oh, yeah, it is. They speak the language of Maltese and English. So that is both.
Okay. Wasn't your dog Harry Maltese?
He was a mix between a poodle and a Pomeranian.
Oh,
Right.
He was a Pomapoo.
Or whatever.
Pomapoo.
So, Brian,
He's a little ridiculous dog, actually. I know you like those big. You're a golden retriever guy, right?
Sporting dogs.
Yeah, sporting dogs. Okay, I'm a little ridiculous dog person.
Here's
but
a text
what can
you'll
I say?
like, Brian. This is from an anonymous texter. Is Malta an island? Oh my God. Please don't advertise your ignorance. She's talking to me. Or hey, have someone on your staff look it up before you say anything and embarrass yourself.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anything.
Okay, so
either.
Brian, you've given us, I thought, a pretty interesting commentary on the state of the mayoral race since its beginning when Josh Kraft first announced. We're now a little more than a month away from, is it the preliminary, whatever it is, the runoff, where we narrow the field down to 2 people and move from there. What would you say at the end of July is the state of this Kraft versus Wu race?
So that significant poll came out last week, right?
Yep.
And that was, I thought, a big deal. In some ways, I want to say it wasn't very surprising because the mayor holds a commanding lead. In other ways,
30
I think
points.
It is surprising because that commanding lead is 30 points.
Yeah.
That's a big lead. Like a really big lead. And in a divided time like this is extremely unusual. I have no idea whether that holds up in the actual race in September. We don't know what Josh Kraft is planning to do in the last 5 or 6 weeks of the campaign, whatever's left. But it is surprising. But what's not surprising is that Kraft is registered as poorly as he is. He's run a lackluster campaign. He's only negative. He doesn't feel particularly present. He's not been on TV in a significant a way as we thought he would be, and he just doesn't appear to be part of the civic conversation in a constructive way. Maybe it's just his personality, maybe it's him, maybe it's staff, maybe it's a strategy. I don't know, but it's not surprising Wu is ahead. It is surprising she's this far ahead. Tell me I'm wrong here.
No, I agree with every word you said, actually, and I'm not quite sure I even understand the Kraft campaign. And I should say, the last week of August, individually, we will have Mayor Wu on the Tuesday of the final week of August, and Josh Kraft will join us on Wednesday of the final week of August. September 9th is the preliminary. No, I agree with everything you said. I'm really surprised by the whole campaign, to tell you the truth. The Kraft campaign.
Has he been on your show yet?
He was on our show a couple of months ago, and we invited him back
again.
I just said last week of August, and he'll be here. So, yeah.
Was he good on your show?
I don't comment on. I'll send you the tape, and you can listen to it and decide.
What does that mean? Was he
good on our show, Marjorie?
Yeah.
I mean, he did a great job at the Boys and Girls Club. He's a great guy.
Is that what Brian just asked?
I think it's unclear to me why he's doing this and why he's doing this now. I don't get it. I mean, I've said that any number of times. I just don't get it. The timing seems to be off at this juncture.
If you're going to do it, don't you go out and grab it? Like, if you're going to invest the time and the money and your reputation, don't you just go out and take the place by storm and do whatever you need to do to register out there?
Yeah, well, that's, again, it's kind of a mystery. It doesn't seem he has the fire in the belly that you need to do this, which makes me wonder, why did he do it? I don't get it.
Without sounding too much inside baseball, but since 3 of us have had some connection to politics in our professional and, I guess in my case, sort of in my personal life, I've never seen a campaign like this where there's somebody who has enough money to introduce him or herself before going negative, where they chose to go negative before the public even knew who you were. The cardinal rule is you spend a ton of money, if you've got it, to define yourself, not only what you stand for and why you're running, but who you are. And then if you choose, you or the PAC that's supporting you chooses to spend zillions of dollars trashing a very popular mayor, go for it. But I don't understand the whole campaign, frankly.
I think the miscalculation there, Jim, is I don't think that Josh Kraft ever thought she was a very popular mayor. I think
that's a great point.
Maybe.
I think they overestimated the unhappiness with her and the possible racism and the possible sexism and the idea that these developers
came after Kraft announced, by the way.
But this idea that the developers were upset because she didn't answer their phone calls fast enough, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's it. They underestimated her popularity.
There is some risk in this for her. We're not done with this yet.
No, keep going.
There is some risk in this for her in that, in the mid to late July, she's up by 30 points. If on primary day or whatever they call it, preliminary day, she wins by 18 points, then you're going to be sitting here in the safety of your studio again, talking about how he has waged a comeback and how it is trending toward him, and he's got momentum in this race. And an 18-point lead is a huge lead, even in a Boston mayoral race. But if he can chip away or really dent that 30 points, he may come out of this in not an awful situation.
By the way, an anonymous texter says, Jim, help. What state is New York City in, and is it an island? I know the answer to both those, and I'll get back to you at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
We're talking to Brian McGrory, former editor of the Globe. Now he's the head of BU journalism. Can we go ahead?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I read this story. Of course, I can't find it at the moment, but I read this story about Media Matters, and I was about in tears. And I was talking about how Media Matters sets the record straight when Trump lies and his administration lies, and it's a anti-Trump kind of website, a lot of Democratic funding.
It's all a huge part of its function is to correct misinformation in the media.
It's great. It's a fantastic website, and apparently they're up to 15 million so far in legal bills. Musk has gone after him. Elon Musk has gone after him, and the Trump FCC has gone after them. And the basic story is that these anti-Trump sites are going to get shut down because they can't afford to fight back, and that's the situation Media Matters is in.
Well, not just anti-Trump sites, CBS News, whatever it is, any responsible media-connected operation.
Yes, that's. I don't know if there's a question in there.
The question is, how far does this go? Does he go after the New York Times after this? He's already gone after the Wall Street Journal. Was it up to $20 billion is sued against the Wall Street Journal now?
The answer is yes. He's going to go after everybody, isn't he?
He'll absolutely go after everybody. And look, it didn't begin. Again, we said this. I think last time I was on. It didn't begin with CBS. The ABC was part of this before CBS was. Sort of a verbal stumble by George Stephanopoulos, and that cost them, $15 million?
16, yep.
16. And then CBS with their huge payout over a routine editing of a 60 Minutes tape. That's absurd. Elon Musk tying up Media Matters. I sort of have mildly mixed feelings about Media Matters. David Brock is he's
gone, though.
A controversial figure. He's not there anymore, but he's very much a provocateur, and so I have a little bit of a mixed feeling on that. I honestly think that it's the Wall Street Journal that's going to be sort of the one that pushes back on Trump.
Yeah, and I hope so.
I think they're not going to take this at all.
Rupert Murdoch's Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, Murdoch is not going to deal with this in any sort of acquiescing way.
Can I just, we've gotten a number of texts suggesting that
Jim was afraid to walk down the street in Somerville to look at the Northern Lights.
Well, someone actually did text that. That wasn't the text that I was referencing, but thank you, Marjorie. By the way, the euro is the currency in Malta. A number of people have said, why didn't we ask Media Matters about this state of affairs? It was on the front page of the New York Times 30 minutes after the vice president of Media Affairs was with us on Friday. And the answer to the question is we didn't ask it because they never shared it with us, and which is troubling to me. The story came out about 30 minutes after we hung up with their vice president, and we are a bit troubled by the fact that they chose not to share it with us. So there we are. It's nice to see you, Brian McGrory.
Great to see you guys. Jim, great to see you.
I said that. It's great to see you, too.
Jim, I guess Jim hasn't shared the story with you about what happened to him when the threat came in for him. But
why don't we...
next time you have your get-togethers.
The police did its job. Let's put it that way. The police of numerous communities did the appropriate thing.
Numerous states, numerous countries. Jim had everybody on it.
They did.
But just to be clear, Globe reporters and photographers can be surrounded at Mass and Cass, and Jim thinks they're just fine. Just fine.
Thank you for that final note. Appreciate it, Brian McGrory. We'll see you soon. Be well.
Thank you, Brian.
Brian McGrory.
We've been speaking with Brian McGrory, head of BU's journalism department, former editor of the Boston Globe. We thank him very much for his time. Coming up after this quick break, our own Carmen Sandiego, Christopher Muther, is here. He's a travel writer, of course. He's going to talk about international tourism. Really bad this season because people aren't coming to America, particularly Canadians. And music at the baggage carousel at Logan Gym is extremely controversial. Do you want them there or not? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR on 89.7 GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For decades, immigrants illegally in the U.S. could challenge their deportation cases after posting bond. The Trump administration is ending that long-standing practice, saying immigrants should remain in detention.
I truly do think that they want to make it as hard as they can to make it more difficult so people just leave.
I'm Elsa Chang. We'll talk about the impact of this change on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Knowing Nature, Stories of the Boreal Forest. Captivating photos and interactive displays take visitors inside a vast wilderness. On view this summer. PEM.org. And M&M Skylights, offering the full range of Velux skylight products, installation and maintenance services to customers from Boston to Portland and surrounding areas. More information at mmskylights.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browder, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, 11 o'clock sharp, joined in person by the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Catherine Clark. We're joined now on Zoom by a not-so-royal Tenenbaum, that'd be Boston Globe travel writer, Christopher Muther, whose head is equidistant between two lamps, like perfectly placed.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that, Christopher. Nice to see you.
And kind of little shooting stars coming out of your head.
I know.
Yeah.
Turn on YouTube quickly. Go ahead.
I worked on this all morning, by the way.
I'm sure you
the
did,
setup.
actually.
Seriously, the lighting, the clock behind me, the lamps. Yes.
Perfect.
So, international tourism, you wrote this great piece. We're losing billions because people are not coming to the United States of America in the summer.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, we kind of saw it coming as soon as Justin Trudeau told Canadians to rethink their travel plans this summer.
Yeah.
Back in January, when the tariff wars sort of began, and also when Trump began calling Canada or referring to Canada dismissively as the 51st state. So from there, people could kind of see the writing on the wall. What's interesting to me about this, and I'll get to other countries in a minute, but the fact that, normally in a news cycle, people have a attention span of a squirrel.
Right.
But in this case, the Canadians have really dug in. They're still not coming. It's been consistent, and it's down 20 to 30%, depending on which figures you look at. But in general, yes. And they're the largest group of international tourists that the U.S. has. So billions of dollars right there. Now, on top of that, visitation from Mexico is down. Visitation from Western Europe is down. In general, people just have a bad perception of the U.S. And there was a company that did a study, and they asked people from 5 different countries, compared to last year, how do you feel about coming to the U.S. this year? All of them were down except for India, which is way up.
Yeah, India. Why was that?
I don't know. It's fascinating. That was up 40%.
Yeah.
Everyone else was down 20 to 30%. But
India's leader is pretty tight with Trump, by the way. So I don't know how that translates into the Indian people, but maybe that's
I think you'd be nervous too, because a lot of Indian people are dark-skinned, and it's dark-skinned people that are getting pulled over. In fact, just in my personal life, I've talked to people that are American citizens, born elsewhere. One was born in Iran, one was born in Argentina, and they're both afraid to go visit their families because they're afraid they're not going to be able to get back in the country without some big hassle. And they're saying they should go to different airports. They're scouting out which airports might be less dangerous for them to come back into, where they're most. They didn't give a very good report on Logan, by the way. They said one of them said they're going to go to that airport in Newark, where they've had
I mean, you raise a really good point about that, because you think about having discretionary income and only so much vacation, and are you going to spend that going to a place where you have to worry about scrubbing your cell phone or the color of your skin before you get there?
Exactly.
Or do you want to relax on vacation? And I'm not saying that universally happens to people, but even a perception is enough to turn people away.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. All the people who would travel here otherwise from all these countries are standing on principle. Would the American people do the same thing if they were in? And we were talking at the top of the show how we are these passive people who react to almost no slights, to almost nothing. The Canadians are actually, and the Mexicans, they're actually standing up and saying, we're not going to take this kind of
also, I think,
treatment.
When Americans are nervous, they're afraid of going to countries that they might perceive to be, well, you would know better than I, but dangerous. And they're probably, or communist countries. I don't think Americans going to go to rush over to go to North Korea. Well, you can't go to North Korea.
I've been to China a lot of times.
But I think a lot of people might be nervous about going to China.
I don't know about that.
They're less nervous than they'd be about going to France or one of our allies, I guess is my point.
Or Malta, as we just discussed with Brian McGrory, wherever that is.
It was, or whether it was an island or not.
Okay, so Christopher Muther, while international tourists are not coming, apparently your parents are coming. Now, you, Christopher Muther, who's a grown person, invited him. I mean, you're grown up.
That's debatable, Jim.
You are. You brought your parents along on a foray into Maine to a one-of-a-kind campground, I think. Actually, we should set this up for the right feel.
Yes.
Play a little sound. Go ahead.
Yeah, we have a clip. This is a Wes Anderson type place, and we have a nice clip from his 2001 film, referenced earlier by Jim, The Royal Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaum bought the house on Archer Avenue in the winter of his 35th year. Over the next decade, he and his wife had 3 children, and then they separated.
Are you getting divorced?
At the moment, no. But it doesn't look good.
Do you still love us?
Of course I do.
Do you still love Mom?
Yes, very much. But your mother's asked me to leave, and I must respect her position on the matter.
Okay. You're a big Wes Anderson fan.
So what is this place?
Yeah, so tell us about this campground, $500 a night.
I mean, you've got to be a devoted Wes Anderson fan to go all in on this. I mean, $500 a night and a 3-night minimum.
Yeah.
So right there, you're paying out $1,500 to stay in basically what is a Wes Anderson-ized double wide. Near a Gooseneck Beach in Kennebunkport in Maine. And I don't mean to sort of diminish the double wide part of it, but it is a double wide. And, they've done some cute things with the decor. And if you're a Wes Anderson fan, then it's fun. I feel like they didn't go far enough. I mean, that's because, I arrange my life like Wes Anderson perfectly between 2 lamps, and I only use the same font for every letterhead I send out. But still, I would have loved to see... for instance, we were having some issues with the TV. And, you don't go to Maine to sit and watch TV. But my parents at night would want to sit and relax. And I wanted to show them Wes Anderson movies because they had never seen a Wes Anderson movie, which is part of the reason why I wanted to bring them along to see what they thought, because they had no preconceived notion. And we couldn't get the TV to work, and there was no DVD library.
Yeah, that's bad.
Old school.
That's bad.
Of Wes Anderson movies. So there were definitely some disappointments. It was a comfortable place. It wasn't like the full Anderson experience, but it was for a nerd like me, there was enough reference there to get me excited.
What was it like spending 3 days in a double wide with your parents?
Let's see. I know they're not listening, so I can say whatever I want.
But
horrible. It's horrible.
But what's the idea that you have characters from the movies, or there's references?
It's Wes Anderson themed.
Yeah, but how so?
So there's 9 of these cabins. We'll call them cabins instead of double wide. It sounds classier. And each one is based on a different film.
Okay.
So we were in the that's how memorable it was. We were in the Grand Budapest Hotel. I really wanted to be in the Moonrise Kingdom or Royal Tenenbaum cabin, but they weren't available. The last one I could get was Grand Budapest Hotel. And it was, it was comfortable. We had some technical glitches. Again, when you're with a couple of 80-year-olds, it's tough. You know this, Jim. So it can be tough. And it was, fun to be with my parents. Yeah. I mean, it honestly was fun to be with my parents.
So the Grand Budapest would have themes. It might look a little bit like a room in the Grand Budapest Hotel or something like that. Okay,
yeah,
I got you.
My particular cabin had a bulletin board or like a wall of like old style hotel keys on it. Sort of like what I would call whimsical wallpaper. I just did air quotes for people who aren't watching the live stream.
I'm watching, yeah. No, it sounds fabulous. Let's move on.
So I love this story about the retrologist. How do you say it?
Retrologist.
Retrologist. Is that how you say
right?
it?
Yes.
Okay.
I never even heard the word before.
Okay, the roadside attractions, because it's so true. You know, sometimes you're on the highway, maybe to the Cape or someplace with a lot of traffic, and Waze or Google Maps, whatever it is, will send you off to the old road to the Cape or the old roadway. And suddenly you're going by all these cool little clam shacks, or, you know, on Route 1 in Saugus, you talked about all these neat things like old pizza joints and stuff. It's really kind of a neat thing to see what you don't see on the highway. So tell us about this piece. I'm sorry, I talked too long.
Not at all. It's only when Jim talks it's too long. No, this guy is fascinating. He's like a big producer at WABC in New York.
Yeah.
And yet he's obsessed with these old school roadside attractions. And so he just travels the country whenever he takes vacation. He doesn't go to a Wes Anderson campground. He goes to like the sort of cool old school places. You know, I mentioned Route 1 in the story because I think that gives people who aren't familiar with the idea like a picture of what he's into. Like, you know, the Leaning Tower of Pizza.
Yes.
On Route 1. Like these sort of old school. There's also these things called muffler men, and they're not actually mufflers, but they're these 20-foot fiberglass statues that were used back in the day for like advertising French fries or cars or whatever. And he goes looking for those. You know, as you guys know, it's sort of almost a lost art. These places are disappearing in favor of like boring big box stores. And so he's trying to sort of capture that moment and document them before they're gone. He's also just letting people know who might be interested in seeing them, where to go see them.
Is there a way? Did you make up that word, or is that like out of retro?
Retrologist?
Or is that a real word?
I would love to take credit for it, but that's what he calls himself.
You know, you reference south of the border. I assume everybody listening has been to south of the border at least once. Is there anybody ever who has not been wildly disappointed by the time? No, I'm serious. It builds up in a way that is almost. By the way, for the 3 people listening who don't know, you drive to wherever, Florida. You drive south. How many signs did you say they're leading? You've never been there?
No.
How many signs are? Didn't you write in your piece how many signs there were before you get there? How many?
Yeah, I think it's like 275, but that's like on either side.
Right, they're billboards. Every once in a while, they're constant billboards. You're X numbers away, miles away from so and so at south of the border. And he gets south of the border, and it's got all these little tchotchkes, those little crap, right? All plastic crap and other stuff.
It's like Wall Drug. Where's that? That's out in the west somewhere. One of the states where 500 miles away, they start advertising Wall Drug. But on the other hand, you go up Route 1 in Saugus, and you go, I remember stopping, actually. I think I had one of my kids, and they were really hungry or something. We stopped at some diner on Route 1 in Saugus, and it was great. It was like the old 50s style diner with they actually had the jukebox. I don't know if they still do, but they had the jukebox thing on the table, you know, where you could pick the songs out of the jukebox. It was really cool.
That is cool.
That sounds cool, as south of the border is not cool.
Okay.
No, it's not.
All right.
Now,
sorry, go ahead.
I got to say that I criticized you in the air last week, and I criticized you before I did my research, so I want to apologize. Who were we talking to about the music? Oh, Jared. We were talking to Jared Bowen about the music at the baggage claim at Logan. And we were talking, I don't know if we said you were an elitist a-hole, something like that, because you had written a piece prior to that complaining about it. And I was saying how glorious it was and what a brilliant idea that Rich Davey, the new head of Massport, had. And then I finally went, and I should have done this before. And I heard, I have to say, maybe the worst music I've ever heard in my life at the terminal. Here's what I heard. Who is that? Who is that again? Who is that? I can't remember. Who is that again? Christopher?
You're asking me?
Oh, you didn't hear it?
They have rotating musicians.
Oh, you didn't hear it?
Oh, he didn't hear it.
Yeah, and I can't hear. So.
Oh, sorry. That was ABBA, your favorite band.
Oh.
It was a joke. I didn't go out there. Now,
That went well, Jim.
That really went well. Yeah, this was beautiful. Okay, so what is your, it's like amateur musicians and some young professional musicians play there and attempt to soothe the crowd that is totally unsoothed, as we almost all are, when we get to the baggage claim. So what's your problem?
I've got a lot of problems. This one in particular, it was their timing of the announcement was interesting because I had just gotten off a very long flight. I always get plane headaches, which I realize, when I'm on a plane, I get a headache. And it's not good for a travel writer, but it happens. And so I always have my Advil ready. I get off the plane. I get ready to kind of close my eyes for a while. And on a particular recent flight, it was just a nightmare. And it's never easy at baggage claim because there's always people who are trying to stand in front of you for some reason. And then there's announcements coming over the loudspeaker, and it's stressful. You have to worry if your baggage is going to show up or not. And so the idea of adding music on top of that, I don't care if it's ABBA. Well, I do care if it's ABBA. If it was ABBA, then but in this case, as you say, I wouldn't use the word amateur musicians, but sure, amateur musicians and locals. The last thing I think people want is more noise at the airport. I am very sound sensitive, I will admit, but who wants to hear, you're already listening to someone's cell phone conversation standing next to you at baggage, someone saying, "I'm here, honey, come pick me up." It's yeah, they just need to look at FlightAware and they'll know you're there. So there's no need to scream in your phone.
We're talking to Christopher Muther from the Boston Globe.
Okay, so you also wrote a great piece about a breakthrough at the TSA at the airport. You can leave your shoes on while passing through airport security. What'd you say?
Oh, it's amazing. I have TSA pre-check, but there have been times when the pre-check line is closed for whatever reason, so I have to take my shoes off. And just the idea, as you guys know, of taking your shoes on and off, finding a place to balance yourself to do it, and not to criticize my fellow mankind, but people are really dumb, so they don't realize you need to take your shoes off. You're standing in line waiting, why not just pop your shoes off while you're waiting instead of when you get to the belts and then people take their shoes off? It's what have you been doing for the past half hour? Standing around waiting for live music at baggage check? I don't understand. So yeah, so this now eliminates that part of it, and people don't need to worry about taking their shoes off. This one man 19 years ago who put a bomb in his shoe that didn't even work. For that reason, we've had to take our shoes off, and we no longer have to. So I'm very, very happy about that.
So the thing I didn't understand was the what's the dog killer's name? Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security. The Secretary of Homeland Security says, "Don't worry, there's still advantages other than not having to take your shoes off on pre-check, so you should still do it." What are the advantages of pre-check other than not having to take your shoes off?
You don't have to take your laptop out of your bag.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, so that is something, actually.
Oh, yeah, there's a few things. You don't have to take off a belt. You don't have to stand in the scanner where you put your arms up. You just walk through a standard metal detector. It's a lot easier.
And why are they not getting, you also wrote they're not getting rid of the liquid limitation carry on till likely 2040. Why is that? Is there still a perceived threat, or what's the deal?
I think they heard about all the alcohol you try to smuggle on flights. No, I think that particular rule has to do with still a chemical reaction that people could create. And really the biggest part of all of that, the shoes are one thing, the liquids require more. So airports need to have what's called a CT scanner, which is basically a CAT scan for and they can immediately identify what's going on. Logan has installed some of them, but not at every checkpoint. In the U.S., think about all the airports that this needs to happen at. If it hasn't fully happened at Logan yet, think about Des Moines or a smaller airport where it probably hasn't happened yet. And that's why they're giving the 2040 number, but who knows? It could happen faster than that. And also, there's always rumors that they're going to get rid of it sooner than that. So, knock on wood, we'll see.
By the way, our colleagues have put up some of the signs for south of the border. I forgot Pedro is the guy. Pedro.
Yep.
But the signs are rather pun-like. One of the signs says, "You never sausage a place. You never saw such a place." Exactly, and it's 10 miles away. And you've never been there. You get really excited.
I've never been there.
As you get closer and closer, and then the reality is not quite the same.
I had the ultimate cruel experience of doing this as a child and seeing those signs every however many miles and like just begging my parents to stop. And, full circles, now I've dragged my parents to the Wes Anderson campground. So now we're even,
Okay.
Talk to Christopher Muther.
Okay. So, Christopher Muther, we've all been reading about how in Barcelona, people are spraying visitors with squirt guns because they're mad about being overrun by tourists, but apparently not so in Madrid. Sounds like you had a wonderful time.
I really did have a wonderful time in Madrid, and I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting to have a wonderful time there. I just had heard from folks that it was just kind of like a blah city, like flat, boring, and it's not like that at all. It's just a lovely European capital. There's filled with culture and amazing food and high temperatures, but it's still, and people there are not opposed to tourism. They're not having the same issues as Barcelona, particularly maybe because people think it's a blah city and not many people are going, as many people is going there as Barcelona. But I thought it was really fantastic.
So what's so great about Barcelona pre-squirt? I mean, why are people flocking there? What are we all missing who haven't been?
I mean, if you haven't been, I feel like, well, you're missing like some really fantastic museums. Okay. Like the Prado is there, and there's all of sort of like there's a lot of really important Spanish art that's there. So that's for me, that was a big deal because I'm sort of an art nerd. On top of that, the food there is really fantastic, and I feel kind of ashamed that I had never been there because I'd been all over Spain before. My husband's from Spain, but he's taken me.
Where's he from?
He's from Galicia.
Go ahead.
And Asturias, in that area.
Is he worried about traveling? Was he having been born in Spain?
He was born here in the U.S.
Oh,
His
he's born
parents
here. Okay.
Are from Spain, and he's in the process of getting a second passport. So perhaps the next time you talk to me, it'll be from my new apartment in Madrid.
Okay.
Hey, Christopher, though, my sense of your joyous time in Madrid, this is a serious comment, would not have happened had you not met that couple at the cafe with whom you hung out like every single night to sort of review the day, and two locals and plan the next. Is that fair?
It's totally true. I was walking the first night. There had just been a thunderstorm. The sidewalks were really, really weirdly slick for some reason because they were wet, and I just went down like hard. And people came out of the cafe, and like I said in the story, I thought, oh, here it is. Like, they're going to sort of create the diversion, steal my wallet, steal my phone, because, I have to be a suspicious American. And they were wonderful. And they every night they wanted to make sure I was okay. And then they heard I was from out of town, and they wanted me to see all the right places. And then we just kind of clicked.
I love that.
And I met some of their friends, and, like, last night, I find myself hanging out at Boyberry during Gay Pride. It's like, all right,
wow.
I'm down with Madrid.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Hey, Christopher, it's good to see you, as always. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Christopher. And thanks for all the great stuff you do in the Globe. Your stuff is a riot, and it's really
Thank
good.
you both so
Thank
much.
you.
Great to see you both.
We've been speaking with Boston Globe travel writer
He's out of
Christopher
symmetry,
Muther.
though. Just see, he leaned his head to the right, so it's sort of covering one of the two lines. Oh, there you go. You're back. You're back. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Christopher. Coming up after this quick break, just enough time left for our Two More Things segment. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to GBH on 89.7, and we are streaming, rather. You aren't. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Trusted, local news.
The city of Boston is asking Republic Services to cover the cost of fines being issued to city businesses for uncollected garbage.
GBH News.
The State Department is pressuring Harvard to produce foreign student records within a week. Harvard says the move is retaliatory.
Here for what matters to you.
Shifting federal policies on immigration are beginning to cost healthcare workers their jobs.
GBH 89.7. Online at gbhnews.org.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Speaker Series, continuing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall with 7 evenings, featuring Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, and former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. BostonSpeakers.org. And the Boston Symphony Orchestra, announcing the 2025 season of Tanglewood, showcasing the beauty of incredible surroundings and world-class music. Tanglewood, where music goes for the summer. Tanglewood.org.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're live at the library tomorrow, as I've told you. Congresswoman Catherine Clark, the number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, will join us in person at 11 o'clock. Hope you join us, too. It's time for a quick 2 More Things segment where we shove in 2 more things that didn't fit in the rest of the show. Marjorie, what's yours?
You go first. Yours is better.
It is?
Yeah.
Well, I don't like
ahead.
that pressure. Don't say it's much
go ahead.
better.
Go ahead. Yours is better.
Okay, it's not better. Don't say that. I don't like
better.
saying it's better. Don't say that.
Better.
Okay, it's not better, but it's different. Here's this drove me nuts. Trump is doing that press conference yesterday in Scotland when he wasn't playing golf. It was supposed to focus on the trade deal with the European Union. Instead, it turned into a long list of his personal grudges and misinformation about windmills. Here it is.
But more important than that is it ruins the landscape. It kills the birds. They're noisy. You have a certain place in the Massachusetts area that over the last 20 years had 1 or 2 whales wash ashore, and over the last short period of time, they had 18. Okay? Because it's driving them loco. It's driving them crazy. Now, windmills will not come. It's not going to happen in the United States. I would love to see. Today I'm playing the best course, I think, in the world, Turnberry. Even though I own it, it's probably the best course in the world, right? And I look over the horizon and I see 9 windmills. It's like right at the end of the 18. I said, isn't that a shame? What a shame.
I don't even know what to say. I will say a couple of things. First of all, as usual, a total font, is that the right word, of misinformation and lies. Let's just
the whales were killed by fishing lines
let me get there.
and boat hits.
Let me take him in the, first of all, he says elsewhere, we didn't have this, it's the most expensive form of energy. It is not. You heard Bill McKibben say, let's not call wind and solar alternative energy anymore because they're cheaper. Onshore wind is dirt cheap. Offshore wind, after you've built it, the building is expensive, it's dirt cheap. Number 2, are the whales gone loco? Maybe they are. I have no idea if they're gone loco. Neither is he. Is there evidence that offshore wind causes whale deaths? The NOAA, the federal agency, he's head of the federal government. You know what they say? No. Okay, third. Do these, what are those things called? The turbines.
Turbines.
They rust and rot, as he said, in 8 years. Well, some presidents rust and rot in 8 years. do the turbines rust and... No. 20 to 25 years, they're killing us. Are they killing us?
I don't believe so.
He can't even... When he says
One of them
this,
fell apart
the Massachusetts area,
Nantucket.
he is so busy figuring out what lie he's going to tell next that he can't even...
People believe this. They had like 1,000 people at Barnstable High School with this group that came in to talk about how the windmills were killing all the whales. 1,000 people were there and think, God, they must be killing the whales because 1,000 people are there. One of my neighbors told me this. I said, that was baloney. Look up the group. They're some group out of Little Compton or something like that. They're full of baloney. Anyway.
In any case, that's all I have to say. Don't believe a word.
Well,
Go ahead.
I don't have much to say, but I just do want to say.
So the mine was better
Trump has gone so far out of his way to get people off the Epstein thing. Last week, he's going to arrest Barack Obama for treason, death penalty thing.
Yeah.
Now he wants prosecutions, investigations of Kamala Harris, Beyonce, Oprah, and Al Sharpton.
What do Al Sharpton, Oprah, Beyonce, Kamala Harris, and Barack Obama have in common?
Well, they're all black.
They're all black.
Could be coincidence
Exactly.
there. But he's claiming that they got millions, not Obama, but everybody else got these millions of dollars of payments for their help during the presidential race, which is baloney. I mean, like, for example, they had to pay, Oprah did a thing for him. She didn't get paid, but they had to pay a production company to come in. And, Beyonce did not get paid, but they had to pay her. They paid Beyonce, by the way, $165,000, far from the millions and millions and millions. But he just goes on, and he says you should not allow to pay for an endorsement. He says this is totally illegal. Of course, Elon Musk was trying to pay for votes out in Wisconsin. Remember that when he was writing checks for votes?
But you know what is true in the spirit of fairness?
What?
4 of those 5 people were driven loco by the windmills. Do you know that? Not all 5, but 4 of the 5.
That's right. People have been talking about it. Oprah and Beyonce going off the deep end because they've heard too many windmills.
The whales are driven loco by the windmills.
I know.
In the Massachusetts area.
You know what it is, Jim?
We live in
Very sad.
Boston.
Very sad.
The Massachusetts area.
Well, he doesn't like to say Massachusetts. I guess he doesn't
Apparently
like us.
not. Okay, we're done.
Okay, coming up after the 1 o'clock news, going to talk with Michael Curry, Mass League of Human, a community health centers in the NAACP. You're listening to BPR and GBH and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you're a GBH sustainer and you received a new bank or credit card in the mail recently, there's an easy way to update your information. Just visit gbh.org/update and keep your membership up to date. That's gbh.org/update.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And the Peabody Essex Museum, presenting Knowing Nature, Stories of the Boreal Forest. Captivating photos and interactive displays take visitors inside a vast wilderness. On view this summer. PEM.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR. It's the Mass League of Community Health Centers, Michael Curry, about how the tragic nursing home fire in Fall River is prompting a closer look at how the state oversees those facilities. Plus, the very low standing of the Democratic Party with American voters.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll end this Monday with you. Are you a compulsive work emailer one on vacation? Maybe you'd like to send late night and early morning work texts to my staff, Jim. Or do you, as the French do, uphold your right to disconnect during off-work hours? Can you? Call or text. How do you set work boundaries when enjoying the dog days of summer? That's next on the 3rd hour of BPR 89.7 GBH.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. President Trump is hosting the British Prime Minister at his golf club in Scotland. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports the two are discussing trade and Russia.
The two discussed a serious aid to Gaza, but he made news on the war in Ukraine and the lack of a ceasefire. Trump said he was disappointed in Russian President Vladimir Putin after recent strikes killing civilians. Because of that, he was shortening a previous 50-day deadline for a ceasefire to 10 to 12 days, or face massive secondary tariffs on Moscow's trade partners.
There's no reason to wait. If you know what the answer is going to be, why wait?
Trump said Russia's economy would be so much better if it was not so focused on war and killing people. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, Turnberry, Scotland.
The European Union is agreeing to a 15% tariff on goods it sells in the U.S. in exchange for letting American-made goods into Europe tax-free. Bloomberg opinion columnist Lionel Laurent tells NPR the Europeans, as other countries, don't have the stomach for a protracted trade war.
I think there was a hope that the EU would be able to kind of really tough it out. It has the tools to retaliate, but in the end it's chosen to kind of accept in a sort of anticlimax this 15% number, which is in line with what Japan got, so it's not a huge surprise. But compared to the terms of trade that the EU had with the US before, there's no retaliation. There's the promise to buy more US goods.
The trade deal still requires approval from the EU's member countries. Two leading Israeli human rights organizations say they've examined Israel's war in Gaza from a health perspective. They say they believe that Israel's actions constitute genocide under the 1948 Genocide Convention, a UN treaty. More from NPR's Emily Fang.
Israel's B'Tselem and the Israeli branch for the organization Physicians for Human Rights both say in separate reports that Israel's military's actions in Gaza have destroyed the enclave's healthcare system in a manner, quote, both calculated and systematic. Physicians for Human Rights argues the assault on Gaza's healthcare system is, quote, part of a deliberate policy targeting Palestinians as a group and therefore constitutes genocide under the 1948 Convention, which was largely conceived as a response to the Holocaust. David Mencer, a spokesperson for Israel's prime minister, told reporters the office, quote, strongly rejects the report's findings. Mencer said Israel's military targets, quote, terrorists and never civilians. Emily Fang, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
U.S. stocks are mixed this hour. The Dow is down 19 points. The S&P has gained 1. The Nasdaq is up 50. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. An attorney representing Joshua Heel, an ex-cop accused of having a sexual encounter with Sandra Birchmore when he was the animal control officer in Stoughton and lying about it, says that his client has no interest in working again as a police officer. Brockton Enterprise reports that the attorney made the comments at a hearing with the Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. That commission, an agency responsible for certifying officers in the state, will determine if Heel should be allowed to voluntarily let his certification expire or if he should be decertified. Heel is the fourth ex-Stoughton employee implicated in Sandra Birchmore's misconduct case. And as you pass by the library on Main Street in Great Barrington, you can't miss a new life-size bronze statue. It's of W.E.B. Du Bois sitting on a bench. The organizers behind the project hope it prompts public curiosity about Du Bois and his legacy. New England Public Media's Jill Kaufman has more.
Today, we gather to celebrate a great leader.
Hundreds of people showed up to witness the statue's first public moments. Du Bois was born in 1868 and attended an integrated high school in Great Barrington. He went on to become one of the great black scholars of his time. At the event, Du Bois received what is considered a long overdue recognition from the town and his great-grandson, Jeffrey Allen Peck.
We should measure the prosperity of a nation not by the number of millionaires, but by the absence of poverty.
The significance of the Du Bois statue, Peck said, is to uplift his great-grandfather's commitment to justice and to inspire others to do likewise.
And Mr. W.E.B. Du Bois.
That's Jill Kaufman for Connecting the Commonwealth. 88 degrees in the Massachusetts area. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include ARM, with the new podcast series Tech Unheard. ARM CEO Renee Haas talks to tech company leaders who are working to help shape the future of computing. Available on all podcast platforms.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Massachusetts Congresswoman Catherine Clark, who is number 2 in Democrat in the House, and also the Boston Foundation's Lee Pelton. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. We're joined now on Zoom by Michael Curry. Michael's the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP, and a ton more. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hey, good afternoon.
Hey, Michael, great to talk to you. So a tragic fire in Fall River killed 10 people a few days back at this Gabriel House, and it's an assisted living place. It's like opposed to a nursing home, which I guess the latter is much more strongly regulated than the assisted living places are. But that's going to change as a result of this fire?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of conversations, and I was reminded, both Jim and Marjorie, I was touching base with Cheryl Bartlett, who leads one of our health centers, and she was the former commissioner of Department of Public Health many years ago, and she said that they've been having this conversation for years, and that there was really no momentum at one point to address some of these compliance protections at assisted living facilities. And that she's glad that they're doing it now, but it's overdue. So I think, credit to the policy folks that are now having this conversation, both in the legislature, starting to convene and think about what the solution should be, also within the administration looking at solutions, and then the advocates who are looking for protections to make sure this never happens again. We know that assisted living facilities or residences offer our elders housing and personal care options, and they, sort of can live with some independence in those facilities, and they can get assistance with its activities, build some relationships, and get some management of their medication. So there's not a lot of deep medical care in those facilities, hence some of the conversation about changing that.
But often tragedy provokes change, or at least provokes discussion about change. There is an entity in the state that oversees these facilities. Did they fail to do their job? I'm not suggesting there's a causal connection, but when you read about the oversight across the board of these kinds of facilities, it seems like it took a real backseat to nursing homes, no?
Yeah, I think it reminds me, and again, it's echoes of like the Steward crisis, right? That sometimes, to your point, it takes a crisis before we actually step up and actually prevent these things from happening in the future. Unfortunately, it's happened again. If you take a scan across the country, too often this happens. It's fires, it's deaths, it's the wrong hiring of staff that then hurt patients, right? Those things we should do in this particular case. It should have been required that they have an emergency management plan, that they should have anticipated what would happen on a fire. So, Marjorie, you decide that the patients that are least mobile are on the first floor. You decide that people be evacuated out of windows. It's just common sense, right? That if the fire department had to come, but they can't get through the window because there's an air conditioner window, it's going to prevent saving lives. So I think, Jim, to your point is, we are often in this position of revisiting what we've done and from a regulatory standpoint and saying, hey, we should have held those entities accountable. We should have had a higher bar. We should have been requiring more compliance and scrutiny. And if they needed to go to the legislature and pursue that, I think there would have been a receptive legislature too, because these are our most vulnerable people in society, our seniors. Many of them have disabilities. Many of them rely on Medicaid. Many of them have higher rates of disease. And quite frankly, I say we fail them collectively.
I just want to mention Brian McGrory's story in the Globe today about he interviewed some of these firefighters from Fall River and elsewhere about the incredible bravery. One of them was Nathaniel Anderson, 43 years old, Army combat veteran from Iraq and Afghanistan. One of them that showed up, just in a T-shirt, and he said he ran into the buildings anyway because he said, I saw heads popping out windows. I could hear the screams. You couldn't do nothing. And then he had to keep going back in and out because he didn't have the equipment on. But he said, others said that he carried 6 residents to safety. And as Anderson said himself, some of those residents were still vocal and some of them were fading. But the bravery of these firefighters going in and out and in and out and in and out, I just wanted to mention it.
Yeah, and I'll just mention, because I was on the phone recently with the Vulcans, which are the Black firefighters, and I'm very close since my NAACP days, very close to many of the Black firefighters. And I don't know the firefighters in Fall River, but I do know the ones who are in Boston and who talk to me all the time. And they tell me how much they risk their lives to save people in buildings, quite frankly, and homes. And they tell these harrowing stories of being on top of burning houses to create a way for the smoke and the air to leave the top of the building. And I can imagine Marjorie standing and trying to make a hole in the top of a house.
Me neither.
That could collapse at any point. So one is just to echo your point that if we talk about, angels, people who are doing the work, God's work, and are on this in our midst, who are trying to save us in those circumstances. Those folks ran into a burning building and saved people at the risk of their own lives. We need to celebrate them every chance we get. Diego, Kingsley are 2 good friends of mine. Just a shout out to 2 firefighter friends of mine who I celebrate them every day.
Glad you do. I'm glad you said it too. We're talking to Michael Curry. We talked to you a couple of weeks ago about obviously the horrendous decision around Medicaid and how many millions of people it's going to leave without health care. And the more I read, I mean, I know you live this every day, so none of this is new to you. The Medicaid thing is bad enough, but I'm reading a piece. If you add up in every direction that the Republicans in Congress could screw people vis-a-vis health care, RFK Jr., with his actions on vaccines, is going to make it much easier for insurance companies not to pay for vaccines, which means fewer people will get them. And if they do afford them, that means they're not going to have money for other things. Trump is working to reverse what Joe Biden did, which was remove medical debt from your consumer score. And if people don't know, if your consumer score is brought down by medical debt, that means it costs more to do everything.
Yeah.
Take out a loan, buy a house, etc. Well, Trump wants to reverse that. The subsidies are being reduced or disappearing so that they'll be for higher premiums, so that higher deductible policies are going to be chosen by a lot of people. The end of this monologue is, I'll ask you the exact same question we asked last time we talked. Is the League of Community Health Centers, is the legislature, where is the process to try to fill as much of this monstrous hole, this Grand Canyon-like hole that's being created for healthcare for low and moderate income people in our state?
Yeah, maybe a broader political comment, not partisan, but political comment when I say this, is that people fell for the okie doke, right? Is that you thought you were voting for your bread and your butter, and yet you found out you lost your health insurance, which actually cost you more money, which means that you can't take care of your teeth, your eyes, your mental health, your overall physical health. You can't get your screenings or your vaccinations or pay for your medications. But yet you were worried about whether you could pay for the butter or the bread, although I thought that was misleading as well. That being said, is now we are where we are. Now the big bill has now been passed, and now folks will churn. And that churn means that basically you're moving from one thing to another. You're moving from having health insurance under Medicaid to now losing your Medicaid, but also now losing access to your vaccine, but also paying more on the marketplace for health insurance. And I just want to put this in context, maybe two or three key figures for people to think about. One is before the Affordable Care Act, 49 million people didn't have insurance. Now it went down, I think, mid 20 million, 25 million. This new policy will add 10 to 12 million more people without insurance over the next few years. That means that people will make really tough choices. They'll be sicker, they'll die sooner, they'll be in an emergency room, they'll drive up costs for everyone. And here in Massachusetts, just the recent analysis, the impact of just the work requirements on health services, we'll see about 92, really 93,000 or 184, really 185,000 patients will lose their Medicaid coverage. So imagine you're sick, you have a disability, you're dealing with high rates of disease, you may be taking care of a loved one, and folks are trying to fill out paperwork, and you're basically losing coverage. The example across the country has been, if you want to get people off the rolls, put in bureaucratic requirements, more bureaucracy that drives people off of coverage. This is a bad policy at a bad time when the economy is already hurting. And the projected revenue loss just for health centers between 2027 and 2030 is about $584 million to $1.19 billion. This is just Massachusetts health centers, not even talking about other sectors and across the country. Deeply disturbing, deeply troubling.
I've mentioned a lot how a lot of these cuts, the cuts themselves are horrible, but the fear that these cuts cause are equally horrible in people's psyche. When someone comes into one of your community health centers and says, I'm worried I'm not going to be able to afford vaccines next year for my kid, or I'm worried Medicaid's going to be taken away from me in 2027, what are the people who work with you, what do they say to someone who's that scared, and sadly, in many cases, understandably?
Or I'll add some, or they come in and they're worried about getting their continued gender affirming care, or they come in and they're undocumented or immigrant and they don't have access to coverage. or they come in and they get a stroke program for Black men or Latino men, and they're hearing there's an attack on DEI or health equity. I think we got to develop messaging for all of that, Jim. And when I tell you, even today, texting back and forth with our Commissioner Robbie Goldstein at DPH, on calls all last week with Mike Levine at Medicaid, in constant contact with our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Kiami Mahania, who used to run Lynn Community Health Centers, President and CEO. We are literally in lockstep with our hospital partners like Steve Walsh and the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association and others, health plans and others, really trying to figure out how do we prepare for this unfortunate moment that is literally going to set the clock back for access, affordability, and quality of healthcare and result in the loss of lives. So I'm just thankful I live in Massachusetts and not many other places in the South.
You know, but Michael, what a lot of politicians, Democratic politicians, are afraid of is that the worst of this Medicaid stuff is not going to come till after the 2026 election, so people have not even been aware of it, and they'll, the election time will come.
Or they think it's not true when they hear.
Yeah, and so that was a clever move by Republicans trying to keep their party in power. What about that?
He who controls the narrative controls the people. And what we are absolutely seeing is people are masterfully controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
This will not be, I don't know how many times I've turned on my television like all of you and said, this will not be a cut to Medicaid. We are not cutting Medicaid. Medicaid is going to be fine. And then, of course, that was a lie. Medicaid will see significant cuts, particularly patients will lose access to Medicaid, which will result in all that I talked about earlier. So I think, we have to get back the narrative and the truth has to matter. And we got to figure out how to sift through all the noise and make sure that we're giving the truth. I think that's why my role as CEO of the Mass League Community Health Centers is to, wherever I can, get the data, get the analysis, know what the figures are, and then communicate that with you and any other avenue that I can, because the truth needs to win in the end of the day.
By the way, we should end this part of the discussion with the one positive note on the affordability of healthcare and availability of healthcare. A judge today blocked Trump's efforts to defund Planned Parenthood. Now, obviously, that's not the end of the story, but it's at least the next step of the story, and let's hope that holds.
The stuff that they do, like screening and breast exams and those and birth control supplies, is separate from the abortion issue.
Which is really important because so many people...
The federal government has not paid for abortions, no tax dollars for abortions since Henry Hyde and amendment.
Henry Hyde
that was
from
back
Illinois.
in the 90s.
And there was another ruling last week in a court that stayed or suspended a rule that came from the Trump administration around who providers can provide care to. And of course, what we see across the country is they're trying to put a choke point on any access to care by immigrants, and particularly some immigrants, and keeping them from housing, education, healthcare to force them out. And we know how disturbing that is. They took a loss in the court system last week that really, for the states, shout out to Attorney General Andrea Campbell, phenomenal Attorney General. When I travel the country, she's a rock star. People talk about her. She was one of the state's leaders that filed the lawsuit and got at least a temporary victory for Massachusetts.
You were mentioning he who controls the narrative, et cetera. Well, the Democrats sure as hell aren't controlling the narrative. There's a brand new poll out this week. Democrats are seen by the average voter at the lowest point that they've been seen in 35 years. They are far more underwater, meaning their negatives far outweigh their positives much more, which is stunning to me, than the Republicans in Congress and Trump. What's wrong and how do they right the ship, Michael Curry?
I never thought I would quote Mike Tyson. I never thought I would have a reason to quote Mike Tyson, but that quote that everyone has a plan until you get hit in your mouth. I think that's a Mike Tyson quote.
It is, yeah.
The Democratic Party clearly did not have the plan and got hit in the mouth. And now they're still reeling and trying to come to some terms with what the numbers mean and what America, I don't even remember the total number. I think it was over 70 million, whatever the crazy number was, of people who voted with some complicity, whatever the term is, around all these very nasty policies. And I'd say this, I think the bottom line is that I'll be in Tunica, Mississippi at the Congressional Black Caucus retreat in, I think, 2 weeks, a week and a half. And I'll be there with Clyburn and Bobby Scott and all those black leaders from the Congressional Black Caucus. I'll ask the question, Jim, and I look forward to sharing that with you. What they're saying is the next step to respond to these falling poll numbers, and then also to defend and protect what we know we fought so hard for with the Civil Rights Act, with the Voting Rights Act, with the passage of Medicaid and Medicare. All those 60 wins, 1960s wins are being eroded.
Well, speaking of 1960s wins being eroded, Harvard College is fighting back against the president's effort to shut everything down there and make them get the okay about whom they hire and who gets in there, and all this information about grades and race that Columbia University has agreed to. But at the same time, they've shut down their diversity offices, and they've reassigned staff to the so-called new Harvard Foundation. So how much are they really standing up? You know, the Office for Minority Students, LGBTQ students, and women, that does seem like a capitulation.
Absolutely. I think that, we can celebrate, and at one hand, that Harvard is fighting back and resisting, and on the other hand, we can also hold them accountable that they're not holding the line to defend what we know works. I am a student who went to college from Boston at McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota. We had an Office of Multicultural Affairs. When my first 2 or 3 weeks in class, a professor said to me, the only black student in class, the professor says, hey, we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about housing. And John, I know that you have a housing policy in the state you come from. And Sarah, you have a background in farming. We're going to talk about that. Oh, Michael Curry, we're going to talk about crimes and drugs and violence. And we want your perspective.
Oh, God.
It was, thank God for Multicultural Affairs Department, where you could go to deal with that racial isolation, those microaggressions, making sure that the environment didn't impact your grades and that you still matriculated and graduated. I don't know what illogical thinking goes into eliminating programs for women, people of color, when we've historically been denied access to these institutions. And it's only been a historical minute ago, 1960s, 50s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and today, that we've been able to get into these institutions. And we should have a safety net or an environment or systems and organizations, departments who help us matriculate, graduate, and become the best of ourselves. It's good for the institution. It's good for our fellow students on those campus. It's good for America. If you really want to make America great again, then you don't eliminate DEIB. It's illogical, and it counters that whole mantra.
Michael, as a young man, I don't know how old you were when you went to college. I assume 18, 19, 20, something like that. So you're still a young man, and a teacher says this to you in front of your whole class. How did you deal with that?
If I could, it was like the Take Me Away commercial. If I could have disappeared in that seat and not been, you're just trying to fit in. I'm a 6'2" black guy. I wanted to sit I sat in the back of the room for the rest of my college career because I wanted to be invisible. And all of a sudden now I'm the authority on drugs, crime, and inner cities. I know that he probably thought he was doing something good by researching all the students and then talking on issues. But what he did was he embarrassed me. And of course it was ignorance on his part. I get calls from this day that people still do it in corporations. I just got a call about a school program where a student walked up to another student last week's call, and said, I know you and your family eat watermelon. Like, these are the things that you absolutely need support networks for. And unfortunately, and I'll say this last thing on DEIB and this Harvard thing. This is intentional. It was really, when the Ku Klux Klan was at its height, it was also championing this sort of whiteness campaign and appealing to liberal white people to say, aren't you afraid they're taking your jobs and they're taking your seats? And unfortunately, even liberal white people get drawn into that narrative of thinking that someone is taking their seat who happens to be black or brown, but yet they're not worried about the unqualified white person as their boss or that they're sitting next to or that hired them, which there are many unqualified white people, by the way. They've created this narrative of going after unqualified black or brown people. I get that to this day. if I walk into a room, I can see that look of someone questioning whether I deserve to be there. Although I have more than one degree, I've proven myself. That's called white supremacy, and we as America have not come to terms with that. I know you did not expect to talk about this today, but we need to have a segment on what is white supremacy and how does it manifest in society, because it is here, it's in our face right now.
Well, we should have a segment on that next time we talk to you, because I think it's obviously extremely relevant at the moment.
That's a deal. Next time it's on, you're on.
Count me in.
Michael
Okay.
Curry, it's good to see you.
Michael, thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Talk soon. We've been
Thank you.
speaking with Michael Curry, CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers and the board of the National NAACP. Thanks, as always.
If you're
for
in
taking the
Harvard or
time.
one of these places that says nothing's different, we just changed the name or whatever, you're a woman, you're an LGBTQ person, you're a black kid, you're a Latino. How do you feel?
I think you feel horrible. I think it's just, I can't imagine what.
So in an attempt to send a message to Donald Trump, and I assume it's strategic, not a compromise of principle, you're willing to write off and create fear and anxiety and a lack of feeling of belonging to a huge part of your student and faculty population.
Yeah, I think it's a big drop dead to those people.
Based on the assumption that you can cut a deal with a bully. I mean, I'm assuming, despite the fact that Harvard is, well, I'm going to stop this in a second, despite the fact that Harvard is fighting, meaning they're in court, you don't do something like that unless you think you can cut a deal. You're able to say in, back channels, listen, we did this, so we're already making changes. If this was an all-out fight, there's no advantage.
You know what's odd
this.
about this whole thing? Here you have people that you presume are pretty smart, right? You get Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Cornell, all these schools, not easy to get into, not easy to be a professor at one of these places. Some of the smartest people, a lot of them are historians.
Yeah.
And the old line about you don't remember your history, you're doomed to repeat it. Well, in every authoritarian regime, you've seen the same thing. You go after the universities, you go after the media, you go after certain people in power, and it's repeating itself.
They don't step
and
back
yet
and ever.
They're falling for it, and it's kind of surprising. I mean, I commend Harvard because they're losing billions of dollars, and it's terrible that the research at Mass General and the Brigham and these places is being shut down on cancer and Alzheimer's and all these things. It's terrible, but they can't do this because they're loaded. If they don't have the money to fight, then I think.
Well, they're fighting. I mean, in all fairness, while we criticize this piece of it, and I think fairly compare it to the total and complete capitulation of Columbia.
Look at the alumni from Harvard that are saying, no, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal.
Well, as of the moment, though, they're still fighting. They're still in
fighting.
court. They're still
and I
fighting.
commend them for doing that. It's too bad they got rid of the DEI and the women's office and all that kind of stuff. It's terrible. Anyway, we're gonna talk about something a little bit lighter in just a second. We're going to talk about when you're on vacation. Do you respond to emails when you're on vacation? Do you respond to texts from the office when you're on vacation? Are you ever off the clock during that week or two that you get to take off? Or should we be more, because we're probably not, should we be more like the French who insist, Jim, on a right to disconnect? I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
For decades, immigrants illegally in the U.S. could challenge their deportation cases after posting bond. The Trump administration is ending that long-standing practice, saying immigrants should remain in detention.
I truly do think that they want to make it as hard as they can to make it more difficult so people just leave.
I'm Elsa Chang. We'll talk about the impact of this change on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, presenting As You Like It. This summer's free Shakespeare on the Boston Common. Shakespeare's lush romantic comedy celebrating the joys and follies of human nature. July 23rd through August 10th. comshakes.org. And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering dynamic short programs tailored for mid-career professionals looking to build expertise in innovation, leadership, and technology. Details at executive.mit.edu.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Back in the library tomorrow. Our first guest at 11 o'clock sharp in person. Number 2 Democrat in the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Catherine Clark. Lee Pelton will be there from the Boston Foundation. Corby Kummer, our food guy, etc., etc. We're officially in the dog days of summer, the hottest, most sultry season of the year, when a lot of us head off for some summer vacation thing. But when you're off, do you incessantly check your phone every time you hear this sound? Good. We're all going through the rigmarole of, imagine the sound of the pinging, of setting that out-of-office automatic reply on our emails. Well, not all of us, because actually Marjorie and I have no idea how to do it, but if we did, we would. But we want to know how serious you are about shutting out work and all of its constant soul-sucking demands. You include a little caveat on your away message indicating you'll make yourself available if someone really needs you, or do you just sign off, leave your laptop at the office, forget that you even have a job when you're off? Or do you stay in touch with the office? And if you're one of the bosses, are you the problem? Meaning, are you the one that's reaching out to people who are on vacation? The number is 877-301-8978 to call or text. We want to hear about your vacation work-life balance. Americans do normal work hours even exist? For the French, they do. Marjorie mentioned this. They passed into law a right to disconnect. I think about a decade ago. It's a law protecting workers from negative consequences if they choose not to respond to work email or outreach when they're not on the clock. In fact, I think it's illegal for the employer to even do the outreach. So it's unplugging from work, whether it's off hours or on vacation. Do you do it? Do you even want to do it? Or do you get so anxious that if I fall behind when I return to work, it's going to be horrible, so it's better that I stay up to speed? You know what I'm trying to say. 877-301-8970. Now, you, unlike me, are fairly good at cutting yourself off when you're on vacation. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, I kind of have to read the news because I'm afraid. The problem is everybody's got their phone with them.
Reading the news is a totally different thing.
Yeah,
I'm talking about responding to demands or questions or whatever from an employer, a coworker, that sort of thing.
I think that if you get a reasonable text from somebody about a reasonable problem that can't wait, that's fine. But I think people are very respectful.
What can't wait? What can't wait?
If you have to make a decision about what you're going to do on Monday's show and it's now Thursday of your vacation, I think that's okay. It's the reasonable stuff. But listen to this. This is a Heather who is from Somerset, and she works in hospitality, and she just said, I just got back from vacation, emails and texts all week long, and spent the entire Sunday working, so I didn't end up with a bomb on Monday as I have conference calls back to back on Monday. So she says she deals with all these while she's on vacation. Apparently, according to this story,
by her choice, because she's worried about the load when she returns on that first Monday back.
Yes,
all right?
And apparently a lot of people in America are in that same place. CNBC did this survey, and it said 25% of us have skipped a vacation to avoid an email backlog when returning to the office.
Is that incredible?
Yes. 34% have shortened vacation for the same reason. Meanwhile, 87% favor a company policy to disconnect after work and on vacation, except during emergencies.
Aren't you with the 87%?
I am with the 87%. However, here's a little sound of our executive producer, Jamie Bologna's phone, every 3 seconds with a new text. And that's right. You know what that is? That's the unreasonable demand coming from Jim Browdy. That's what that is.
Thank you. Can I give you an example?
Can we hear that again? Jamie?
Thank
you.
Okay,
That's it. That's the
sound. Can I give you an example?
That's the sound.
I've said this before on the air. I had his object
Jim
lesson.
wants to know who's going to recharge his car. We're at the Boston Public Library.
Thank you. As I started to say, I was in Costa Rica a bunch of years ago.
Yeah.
And almost every place I've ever traveled in my life, you've been able to stay on the grid, as they say. Even China, Europe, wherever it is. Not here. Once you left San Jose, I think is the capital, no Wi-Fi, no contact at all.
Must have been difficult for you,
I was going to be
Jim.
there for 7 or 8 or 9 days, wherever the hell we were. I was totally freaked out. I knew there were going to be important things that I wasn't going to get to address. And it caused me anxiety for the first few days and the last few days of being away. In the middle, I was fine. When I came back, I did have hundreds of messages. Do you know how many of them couldn't have waited?
None.
Not one single message. I'm not making this up. Not one single. And by the way, I was running something at that particular time.
Yeah.
Our show in particular.
The world was not waiting for your response.
But you understand my point? I know you're here to mock me. But my point is,
I am.
Nobody is that important that they can't cut off. And by the way, the satisfaction, I admit I have a hard time doing this. I have a hard time not ruining other people's vacations. You're right about that Jamie text thing.
It is.
I thank you. You don't need the sound effect. I get
It's
the
like
point.
3 o'clock in the morning.
But can I tell you something?
5 o'clock in the
The
morning.
satisfaction of totally
7 o'clock in the morning.
satisfaction of totally isolating yourself from all this work stuff
I
is
remember
really.
what you sent out a text.
This is hopeful.
It's
It's hopeful.
6:30 in the morning on a Saturday.
What's wrong with
I'm
that?
thinking, a lot of our staff here, they're like in their 20s.
Yeah.
They might be out having a good time on a
Yeah.
Friday night. They're not getting up at 6:30
I
in
have
the
two
morning.
words for them, if I may. Wake up. 877-301-8970. We're getting way off track here. The two questions are these. When you're not at work, it could be on vacation because it's summertime, so we're talking about it, or just after hours, do you want any contact at all? That's a yes or no. And number two, wouldn't you love there to be a law in America, just like the one passed in France, I think about a decade ago, called the right to disconnect, where it's illegal, I believe, for the employer to reach out to you off hours, and it is you cannot be punished if he or she does and you fail to respond. Would you like that kind of law?
I would. I don't know that we need that kind of
Oh,
law.
I knew you were going to say that. And
But it'd
why?
be nice,
Why shouldn't we?
Because everything doesn't have to be a law.
Well, why shouldn't it be a law?
It might be nice to have a corporate culture where your vacation was respected as your vacation instead of hearing this all the time. Oh.
It's going well. Now, here's an anonymous text. Work isn't the problem. It is listening to Jim and having to get the phone and Google fact check his statements. I have made a few mistakes today. I've tried to correct them as we go. 877-301-8970.
And one last thing before we get to
We're
the
really
calls.
losing the focus of this conversation here.
Most people, especially white-collar workers, are wired the whole time they're on vacation. 84% of white-collar workers do it, and more than 70% are triaging messages from three or four platforms like Teams, Slack, and WhatsApp. So what happens is once you open your Teams or WhatsApp or your emails, whatever it is, then you wind up having to respond, and then you end up having to put out fires. And before
What did
you know
87% say a minute ago?
They want a company policy. They didn't say they want a law, Jim.
Just repeat it. What
they
do they
want
say?
a company policy to disconnect after work, especially except during emergencies.
Okay, so roughly 90% of us want to disconnect.
That's right.
So we should have a disconnect. That's the bottom line. Whether it's legal, whether it's at your workplace, or whatever.
Well, we're not doing
Don't
that.
bother people when they're on vacation.
Yeah,
Period.
We are paddling. We are dog paddling in our work world, Jim. Have that vision. People just struggling to stay above water. They're dog paddling.
I do.
Their little hands going 95
Okay,
miles
good.
an
Let's
hour.
take some calls here. Mary.
Or pause, I should say.
Okay, good. Mary, would you say their feet?
Their hands.
Okay.
Dogs
Mary
don't
in the
have hands.
Berkshires somewhere. You're first on BPR. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi there. How are you?
Great.
So we've gone on vacation every year with our kids. My husband's worked in tech forever, and he always brings his computer, not because he wants to, but because he spends an hour every morning dealing with whether they're important or not, hundreds of emails. And the reason is that when he does not want to come back on that Monday and have to deal with the 10,000 emails. So it's a way of coping.
Yeah, well, he's not alone. I mean, that's what people do because they don't want to be, as you say, Mary, in this mess on Monday morning where they've got, an email box with 1,000 email messages. But doesn't that sort of take away from the relaxation of the vacation?
It does.
For everybody, not just him, right?
Everybody. Packing up 5 kids to go to we would stay at a place that didn't have Wi-Fi. So we'd have to pack everybody up and go to a cafe where he could connect for that hour. So even, with a perfect environment, he was still forced to,
can I, Mary, this is not just for you. This is for everybody. I mean, I have, I know this will really shock Marjorie. I have a sense of self-importance. But even I know that's a hell of an
Did you get a
admission.
new psychiatrist?
Maybe I
Did you
did.
shrink?
Maybe I didn't. But there's nobody is so important that they can't cut themselves off for a short period of time. And this notion is that you should allow every day of your vacation to be infected with work to avoid having a horrible first day back. Doesn't it make much more sense, Mary, to have a work-free vacation and maybe have a bad 4 hours when you return?
Absolutely. My background's medical, where, when you leave it all behind to the people who are taking care. And it's not that he feels important. It's that all the surrounding people around him who are contacting him feel important.
That's a great analysis. Mary, thanks for your call. We really appreciate it. I made a profound statement, which you missed.
That you have a certain amount of self-importance?
No, not that part. That was profound.
I did hear that.
But my second profound statement in the same sentence is, it is hard when you get back the first day.
It is hard.
So deal with it. I mean, is it better to have a week or two free and have a miserable morning when you return, or to have a miserable 15 days in a row?
I think the person that texted a little while ago had it right, that the vacation was going to be over that Monday morning, but they spent Sunday catching up on emails. I think that makes them much less stressful. It's too bad you have to do that. Fine, do it then.
By the way, there's some I mean, I don't want to be an extremist here or a purist. There's some exceptions. An anonymous texter nailed it. Marjorie would gladly cut her vacation short for the long-awaited Harriet Heinemann interview.
It's true.
That obviously.
We've all been looking for Harriet Heinemann. She must have changed her name.
No, we apparently will have the exclusive at some point. And Marjorie would cut short her
Jim
vacation
Browdy, the Harriet Heinemann years.
The Harriet Heinemann.
Oh, those were the days.
It's actually the Harriet Heinemann months, to tell you the truth. Maybe weeks. I'm not even sure. 877-301-8970.
A prolonged liaison.
No, it was not a prolonged. It was by weeks. Maybe it was a weekend. It wasn't anything. It was a class.
Weekend.
We were in bar mitzvah class together. That's all.
Alan in Charlestown.
Hey,
thank
Alan.
you for calling.
Hello, Alan.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Thanks for my call.
Thank you.
So I was in IT for a long time, and I really knew how to. I wanted to get away from it sometimes. So I went to Maine and camping in Maine on the seacoast, where there was no internet, and. So and people knew you can't get them out there, unless I was on top of my mountain or whatever. So nobody would call me, and I couldn't get internet if I wanted to. So then I was out in my kayak on the ocean. It was big waves. I was out, out in the Atlantic, and maybe a mile offshore, and I'm kayaking. And I had an emergency help desk call for the CIO of the company. We're a global company because I was one of the key people in the mail system. We had a big email meltdown, and I had to actually troubleshoot the call. I pulled up on a sandbar because it was so windy out there, I couldn't really hear what they were saying.
Oh, God.
I had to pull up on a sandbar, and I did the troubleshoot the call. It was, my wife's like, what the heck? I'm pulling a kayak. We had two kayaks. She's following me. She's like, what the hell's going on? And I had to pull up on the sandbar. And she's like, what's going on? I told her, we troubleshooted the call. We fixed it. You can't get away from it, even if you want to.
Well, that's a sad
one.
but wonderful story there, Alan. Thanks for telling us that. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Here's JW in Arlington. All I can say is I hope Jamie vacations in places that have horrible Wi-Fi. Try Malta next year so Jim can't pester him with endless texts. All the BPR staff are saints in that regard.
They're
Can
not
we
all
get the
saints,
sound
by the
of
way.
Jamie's phone yet again?
Oh, my God.
There it is.
Fine.
That's the sound.
So, you haven't weighed in. How many times have you been on vacation in your life? Like 50?
At least.
Okay, so have you ever gotten a contact that couldn't have waited? Ever?
I don't think so, but I do remember in the days before we were all wired and we all had phones that it was different. It's much different.
What do you mean different now?
Because people had to actually call you on the phone, and if they didn't,
they couldn't call you on the. Oh, right, they couldn't call you if you were away.
Rented a place down the Cape.
That's a great
Dennis
point. We survived that, didn't we?
Yeah, they couldn't call you on the phone. You know why? Because you didn't have a phone.
By the way, that's the most important point.
Boston. That's right.
You made the best point.
Thank you.
Why don't you make this earlier?
I don't know.
What took you so long? You ruined the whole conversation.
Well,
because you waited 15 minutes to make it.
That made it much different.
We survived then, right?
We did survive.
And they couldn't get in touch with us.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
877-301-8970. I know nobody has any idea what we're talking about, but what we are talking about is you're on vacation, as some of you may be, or about to be, or were. Do you check in, or are you required to check in And whether you are or not, would you not like, Marjorie doesn't want a law, I do, a right to disconnect law like they have in France, which basically is a right to drop out and not be penalized by your employer for it.
Rebecca in the car. What do you think, Rebecca?
Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, guys. Well, I just wanted to let you know that I haven't had a vacation in 13 years because of a bad car accident my daughter was in. But she resides, and I literally haven't had a vacation. But we're just leaving the hospital today. This is our third week in the hospital this time. But anyway, where she resides, there are many people that work there that call out. And if they call out, there's no one to take care of our most severely sick and disabled people. So if somebody calls out that they're sick, they need to call somebody to come in and take care of these people. So, I don't think there should be a law. I do feel people need to have their time and not. So I feel like they couldn't call somebody.
But can I tell you, hey, Rebecca, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Some people's jobs, like the people you're describing, have such importance and importance to other people, like your kid, that obviously there have to be different rules. But the vast majority of us, I think you'd agree, if we're not part of the scene for a week or so, the world is going to be no worse off. Would you not agree with that?
I do agree with that completely, because you need to recharge your batteries. And, I feel like, I know this better than anyone, Jim, because I haven't taken a vacation.
I'm so sorry.
Since my daughter, she was a passenger in the car on the way to school. And I have not. She was med-flighted to one of our finest hospitals, Boston Medical, and we've been in and out of Mass General, Boston Medical, all the hospitals since. So I can't take a vacation because I can't go anywhere, because if that call comes, I have to be right there because I'm her guardian and her health care proxy. So, and
Rebecca, thank you for
the situation for me.
Right.
Yeah, it's just a little bit tougher for me, but I do see the fact that if that was a law, they wouldn't be able to reach out, Jim, and reach out to people who are in her.
We got it.
Field.
Hey, Rebecca, good luck to all of you and your kid.
I hope your daughter does well. And thank you for the call. Another obvious solution in a situation like that in healthcare, if people are on call. There are certain people
obviously,
that are
as I said, there have to be exceptions. Nothing applies to everything. It's sort of like our 4-day work week discussion. Some people realistically can't have a 4-day work week. Some people obviously do, in the case of Rebecca and her family, and people who need help like that obviously need to check in. I'm talking about the vast majority of us who, despite our feeling of self-importance, at least some of us, the world could do without us for a relatively short period of time. And I would argue when we return to the world, we're probably better off if we have been disconnected. Oh, really, Jim? Yes. Pam in Manchester, you're next on BPR. Thanks for calling, Pam. Hi.
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 Thanks for taking the call.
Well, you're so welcome.
My story is that my husband worked for a stock brokerage firm, and their best salesman never took a vacation, and it turns out he was cooking his books. Everything. So much of it was fake that, that there were all these fake accounts. And the company's solution to this, once it was exposed, was to somebody else would be in charge of their computers and their books. So if anything was going wrong, it would become obvious.
That's a pretty clever strategy, Pam. Thank you.
Pam, thanks
for that call.
I appreciate it.
Here's a texter who says, my boss sets an annoying tone. She will check in from the other side of the world when she's on vacation, and it often feels like she's only doing it because she's insecure. Nobody is that important. But you don't want your boss to do that for another reason, too, because you feel like if your boss is checking in from the other side of the world, then you're going to check in from the other side of the world. And if you were to go to Malta, Jim, we're still not sure where it is or whether or not not. It's an island. But if you were to go
It is an
there,
island.
You know, I don't think you should be checking in from Malta.
By the way, let me just say, to be clear here, because of their exceptions.
Somebody says they found Harriet Heinemann. Jim.
When Marjorie's not on vacation, she doesn't return emails and texts. So she's actually rehearsing for when she is on vacation. Sometimes there are days.
Malfunction.
You know
on
what
my
really
phone.
aggravates me, by the way? I meant
What?
to tell you this,
Yeah.
and I should tell you this off the air.
Yeah.
I text you. This happened last week twice. I text you, and you don't respond, which
right.
aggravates. Wait, I'm not
You went
done.
into a wrong
I'm not
place.
done. It aggravates me a lot.
it
Okay.
does, yeah.
You know what aggravates me doubly? Because then I say to myself, well, maybe she's busy. Maybe she's on the Cape.
Yeah.
Maybe she's swimming. 2 minutes after you don't respond to my text, you respond to a joint text that Jamie has sent to both of us. Now, what does that mean? That means that you actually are reading your text and you choose to respond to the one that he and I are both in from him rather than why are you laughing?
Well,
I mean,
it's not true that I've blocked you. That is absolutely not true. That's what our staff is saying. There was a brief period where your texts were going into a little space.
Oh, sure they were.
That I didn't expect them to go into, and I figured out how to change that.
Brief
Jim.
period.
So now I'm on top
Well,
of
it's been
that.
years since you respond to the group text from Jamie that I'm included and don't respond to mine in the same time period. What do you think about that?
I think that you're not accurately reporting the
I think
facts
I
on the
actually am
ground.
perfectly accurately tell you the truth there. Thank you.
Okay.
Patrick in a car.
Oh, listen to this one.
Hold
my
on, Patrick,
4-year-old
1
hid
second.
my husband's cell phone in her room at home before we left for 1 week at Disney World, and it was our best family vacation
Well, that's a pretty
ever.
good story. Patrick in the car. What's up?
Well, can you hear me?
I think we can. Yes.
Okay. Well, when I go on vacation, I need a vacation from my vacation. And I typically plan a whole day to get back in advance where I can just chill out before I go to work.
Yeah, I get that. You don't want to go in and be a total basket case the first hour you're in the office. I mean, some people have said that, Patrick. So does it work for you?
Well, no, I guess my point is my vacations are, well, I don't want to say they're stressful, but they're action-packed and they're very full. And I actually do need some time off before I go back to work.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually, you know what? Let me tell you what my solution to that is. If I have a vacation that ends on a Sunday, like most people do you know when I always come back? On a Saturday. So I have that day that I'm serious. Patrick's
Here he
talking
is,
about
little goody
similar
two-shoes.
kind. It's not a goody
Forget
two-shoes.
Sunday.
No,
He's
it's
coming back on
Patrick.
Saturday.
No. I don't mean no.
Because he needs 2 days to catch up on all the important messages.
I didn't mean
he's
to come back to.
He was away on vacation.
So I've emailed you while you're on vacation. It just occurred to me. I'm sure that really made you happy. We're talking to Jared now.
You're out. I bet you don't have cell service where you go. You go to that ranch.
No, he actually does. I've responded to.
Did you do it this time?
No.
Okay,
How do you feel when I text you or email you while you're on vacation? Really good?
There it is.
Yeah, not the greatest.
So do you check all your crap while you're away?
No.
You don't at all?
No. Well, that's not true. So usually, actually, I do what you do, is I come back so that I can catch up on everything on Sunday.
Yeah.
Try to do that.
He back on Saturday.
You're not criticizing. No, so I can do Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't do. I come back Saturday.
I thought you said you come back on Saturday.
I do.
So you can
so
start
I can,
working.
No, so I can use Sunday.
'Cause you can
Why
use
don't you criticize
Sunday.
him
Okay.
now?
No, because he came back on
Okay,
Sunday.
fine. Go ahead.
You come back on Saturday to work on Sunday.
Go ahead.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay. Well, Jim's is worse.
It's a lot less stress if you do it that way, and then you're not launching into the week completely buried.
Yeah, a lot of people
tan or
have said that.
something?
Yeah.
Where were you?
In the sun.
Okay. You are the most elusive
An
character.
undisclosed location. Don't tell him a thing.
I just hop from bunker to bunker.
So you don't check your emails from work or stuff while you're away?
Not
I think
really,
it's
because
very
they have the
healthy.
secret back channel to, if something important happens,
That's
they
right.
can just text me.
Do we
And
have
you
a
do
secret
those-
back channel?
I figure you're the secret
I
back
am.
channel. Don't you think?
Oh, that's so nice.
But
Jim.
you do the thing, Jared, where I'm out of the office. I've seen that in your text. Yeah. He says he's out of the office, and so he doesn't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
They find our team here seems to find your quote a brief period when you're texting and going into a little space to be something of great appeal. And Zoe says, "How do I find that little space, Marjorie?" Asking for a friend.
I showed you. All your texts were going into this J at the top of my phone. I actually figured out how to fix it all by myself. I was so proud.
another
Going into
person-
a little space?
Yeah,
Like a little
J
box?
for Jim.
Another person
A little
on our
circle,
team
actually. It was a
says,
circle.
"Jim comes back on Saturday so he can ruin our Sundays."
That's right.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Let me hear that sound one more time.
No. What's your show deal?
So we're going to be talking, I've talked with you both about the Moonwalkers, the exhibition that documents the moon landings with these gorgeous photographs. We'll talk to the producer behind that who worked with Tom Hanks on crafting it. Jane Eaglin, our favorite Jane Eaglin, is here.
She's great.
Always leaving the filter at home. This time she has stories about opera as a contact sport.
Oh, that should be
Elbows and
good.
knees on stage.
She's a hot ticket.
Yeah, and she always names names, which we love.
Oh, good.
And then the Old North Church has a new exhibition. This is based on archaeology that's been done in the city of Boston. They've literally turned up 300 years of toys and games that children have played.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Really?
So we'll
that's
find
a good one.
The 1600s version of Tetris and Super Mario Brothers.
And the Moonwalkers, you recommend it. People should go see it.
I do, because the photography is so extraordinary and it gives you this great perspective on being on the moon.
All right, goodbye. Go do your show.
Okay, bye.
2 minutes, Jared Bowen's On Culture Show.
Don't you want to know what it would feel like to be in the moon, Jim?
No.
Alice, send me to the moon. Remember that line?
No, that was from the Honeymooners. To the moon, Alice.
Very good. Okay.
Look it up.
Keep up with this 24/7 way of our podcast. Check out our TikTok page. Thanks for tuning in today. Tomorrow we're going to be joined by Congresswoman Catherine Clark, NBC Sports Boston Attorney Casey, the Boston Foundation's Lee Pelton, and the Atlantic Food Policy Analyst Corby Kummer. We'll have to ask him about food dyes. That's the RFK's latest. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Mia Harmon, Patrick Lally ran our YouTube stream today. John the Claw Parker is our engineer, and our executive producer, long-suffering, is Jenny Baloney. He's the one that has to listen to those beep, beep, beeps on his phone. Yeah, there it is. It's driving me crazy,
that sound.
Jim.
That's
driving
great,
me crazy.
Actually. It's very nice.
The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is right after us at 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan. You're Jim Brady.
Oh, yeah, I am
Thank
Jim
you very
Brady.
much for tuning in. I hope you can tune in tomorrow and keep out of the hot sun.
Sending
this
emails,
afternoon.
or else I would have responded.
Yeah, Jim is texting.
Goodbye.
Jim's on TikTok. You're supposed to not be on TikTok. Not right now. Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Animation Block Party, dedicated to exhibiting independent, professional, and student-animated works for over 20 years. Presenting Animation for Kids Festival August 9th at the Simmons Theater at the New England Aquarium. Learn more at animationblock.com. As World War II rages on, criminals try to take advantage of the chaos. But with Detective Foyle on the case, they aren't having much luck. Don't miss Foyle's War tonight at 9 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org.